All right, welcome back everyone to block party number 24, the 24th 24-hour collective intelligence block party. And Summer Rose will be hosting this next segment, and I believe she's kicking it off with a cool video, which she'll tell you about. And I'm checking out for the night because I've been hosting for 14 and a half hours, and that's just a little bit inhumane. I might have to call somebody to complain about that. I don't know who to complain about other than myself, but anyway. Great to see you all. Love you all. Summer Rose, take it away.
All right. So I don't know if you want to take a screenshot first, Dana. Can you see that? I mean, I'm going to make it full screen, but you can full screen first. Do you want to take a screenshot and put it on the page to invite people, or I can get rid of that? For some reason I'm not hearing. Are you not speaking, Dana?
Sorry. I just said I just posted it from my phone. I just put the title in words. I didn't put any photographs on the page. It's a little, I don't know, I could do it, but it's a little involved to do it.
Okay.
So I just put the name of it.
Where did you post it to?
The Harmonic Convergence Facebook group.
Here, I can do a picture.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
We didn't really give them much notice. We might want to do it again sometime, like, and let them know, like, it's going to be airing on Wednesday at this time or something. But we'd always do that. Some people are responding to it actually already. They've seen it.
Good job. All right. So should we wait a few minutes, or should we just start? What's everyone
I
think?
can give it 5 anyway.
Yeah, I think we can give it a few minutes to allow people to see it.
Any windows open?
Okay. Works for me. So I can stop. I'll stop the share for the moment. I'll share. This is my first time. Stop video. No.
This looks like it's a presentation actually.
Yes.
Like one of Roland's actual presentations. Maybe that's why I wasn't aware, because it's not really if it's what I think it is, it's not a video, it's more like a PowerPoint presentation with him presenting.
I mean, you'll hear some talk.
I guess we'll see what it is.
These are some of the clips that we'll be seeing. I'm just jumping all over the place.
Oh, now what I'm going to do here.
So, yeah. So yeah, it's a presentation. I think he did a webinar. Maybe I just did.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Cool.
So.
Well, maybe start playing it and see. You can always rewind it, right?
Well, I could start. I think we were giving it 5 minutes though, right? Do we want to take a 5-minute bathroom break too? And just.
Whatever you guys want to do, you were here longer.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break, and then so it's 9:34. We'll start playing at how about 9:40? Does that work for everyone? Or if it doesn't work for you?
Okay, sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna go. We'll be back in 5.
Okay, I did post it over there and I gave it a start time of approximately 9:40 PDT, and I put a link into, so it'll be easier.
Say that again?
I said I added a link, so they just have to click a link, so that will be easier for them to get over here.
It'll be easier to start it when?
No, I said it will be easier for anyone that reads the post. They can just click a link to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I know that stuff is tricky to do on the phones.
yeah.
Impossible on my phone because the screen is broken. It's going to be a while before I can afford a phone. I'm afraid to spend any of my stimulus money because I need it for a down payment or moving expenses or something in the near future.
Curious to see who's here.
If Jamin was here 14 and a half hours, I was here 14 so far today. So I might fall asleep during it if it's not moving along at an interesting pace.
We getting close.
Some speakers are like knockout drops. I'm not familiar with this fellow.
Okay. Well, I guess who's here is here, and we're gonna go for it. Everyone ready? We all back? If you're not back, raise your hand. All right.
Right.
Here we go.
Good morning again for those of you that just tuned in, or good day, I should say, because I know people are in time zones all around the world that are listening in. And today's webinar. The topic is interactions between the Earth's energetic systems and human consciousness. And I'm Dr. Roland McCready. I'll be guiding us through this presentation this morning. If I can get my controls to all work here. There we go. So I'd like to start with an overview of what we'll be talking about today. And these are the three kind of high-level overarching hypotheses on the research side, the scientific side of the Global Coherence Initiative. And first, and you can read these as well, but I'll kind of summarize them here, is that from our perspective, all living things are interconnected and communicate with each other via biological and electromagnetic fields. And secondly, not only are humans affected by the planetary energetic fields, and I'll describe what we mean by energetic fields as we go through this morning, but conversely, the Earth's energetic systems are also influenced by humans, and especially human emotions. And it's the collective field environment of the planet is ultimately made up of the collective consciousness of all of us, all the inhabitants on the planet. And third, that large numbers of people who are intentionally creating what we call, of course, heart coherent states of care, love, compassion, appreciation, generate a coherent standing wave that can help offset the current planetary stress wave. That's we all are quite aware of that. Also watching the news, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the discord and incoherence that there seems to be more of these days than most of us would care for. I'd like to give some context here before we get into the planetary level of what's really at the basis of a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, which has to do with how the heart and brain communicate with each other. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of you out there today that
Are the slides supposed to be going forward?
Them too that I've spoken at. So I'll do a very brief kind of summary and also point out that there are webinars that have been previously recorded that go into a lot more depth on some of these things that I'm just going to very briefly summarize today. One of those being that the heart itself has a complex nervous system within the heart itself, which has given rise to a new field in medicine called neurocardiology. And long story short, basically we now have to think of the human heart as having its own intrinsic little brain in the heart itself that processes information. It's an intelligent system, basically. And the second point here is that the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Now that may sound surprising to a lot of you, but that's actually been known since the late 1800s. If we look in the autonomic nervous system, for example, on the vagus nerves, which are the primary nerves, what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, 85 to 90% of those fibers, and there are many, many thousands of them, are carrying information from the body, but especially the heart up to the brain. So only 10% are down from the brain to the body. And these signals that the heart sends upward, upstairs to the brain, there's many centers that they communicate with and connect into, and they profoundly affect brain function, and especially those centers that are involved in thinking, being creative, thinking outside of the box, these kinds of things, and also into the brain centers that determine our emotional experience. Here's some microscopic pictures of what are called cardiac ganglia. These are from the human heart. So those kind of blue blobs you're seeing there are what are called cardiac ganglia, which are groups of neurons that are wired together in a way to do functional type things. And at this level of the image, the main point here is to see that they're interconnected. So you have lots of these ganglia that are all interconnected, so it's a distributed network. The next image here is a blow up. So in other words, we're going to another level of magnification on one of these cardiac ganglia. So you can see what they look like. And I find it kind of fascinating. They actually look like little miniature brains, each one of these ganglia. And by the way, ganglia just means a group of neurons wired together in a functional way that's found outside of the brain. If this same group of neurons were in the brain, it could be part of the familiar brain centers that you hear about. It could be the core nucleus of the amygdala or interlaminar nuclei, things like this that are well-known brain centers. Just if it's outside the brain, it's called a ganglia. So again, here we're looking at the ganglia located intrinsically within the heart itself. So each one of these, you see my pointer here, these little circle things, those are neurons. Now, it's interesting, I should point out that these neurons in the ganglia, that we go back there, have been shown to have both short and long-term memory using the same type of recording techniques that we use to show that in the neurons in the brain. Now, I'm not implying that the heart neurons are designed to remember what grandma's face looks like, but they do have a type of memory that the heart needs to have. Now, feeding into the brain part within the heart are about 40,000 of these sensory neurons, which are called afferent neurons, more technically. So these sense many different types of things within the heart itself. Functionally, there's a group of them that sense things like how hard the heart's working, the forces for blood pressure within the different chambers of the heart, rhythms and rates, these kinds of things, and encode that information and send that up to the brain and other parts of the body. But a much larger group are also sensitive to the biochemistry in the blood. So they're sensitive to the chemical content. And that makes a lot of sense if you wanted to have a sensory system to know what the hormonal, the neurotransmitter content and flows in the blood were. Even the heart's sort of an obvious place to put that, and that's certainly what is located there. Now, it's interesting that these neurons are what are called multimodal, multisensory. So they're sensitive to many different things.
Hey, everyone, can you hear me? Because I just paused it because it seems like it's still stuck on the first slide. I'm gonna, I guess, go back.
Yeah. Did you watch it before where it progresses, or you said you've already watched it?
Well, it was screen sharing is pause, and I have like a light, a red dot in a circle that's blinking. I can, let me see if it's working now.
Coherent states of care, love, compassion, appreciation, generate a coherent standing wave that can help.
There it goes. Now I see it. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go.
Help offset the current planetary stress wave. That's we all are quite aware of that. Also, watching the news, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The discord and its incoherence that there seems to be more of these days than most of us would care for. I'd like to give some context here before we get into the planetary level of the what's really at the basis of a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, which has to do with how the heart and brain communicate with each other. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of you out there today that is the first webinar that you've been to that I've spoken at. So I'll do a very brief kind of summary and also point out that there are webinars that have been previously recorded that go into a lot more depth on some of these things that I'm just going to very briefly summarize today. One of those being that the heart itself has a complex nervous system within the heart itself, which has given rise to a new field in medicine called neurocardiology. And long story short, basically we now have to think of the human heart as having its own intrinsic little brain in the heart itself that processes information. It's an intelligent system, basically. And the second point here is that the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Now that may sound surprising to a lot of you, but that's actually been known since the late 1800s. If we look in the autonomic nervous system, for example, on the vagus nerves, which are the primary nerves, what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, 85 to 90% of those fibers, and there are many, many thousands of them, are carrying information from the body, but especially the heart up to the brain. So only 10% are down from the brain to the body. And these signals that the heart sends upward, upstairs to the brain, there's many centers that they communicate with and connect into, and they profoundly affect brain function, and especially those centers that are involved in thinking, being creative, thinking outside of the box, these kinds of things, and also into the brain centers that determine our emotional experience. Here's some microscopic pictures of what are called cardiac ganglia. These are from the human heart. So those kind of blue blobs you're seeing there are what are called cardiac ganglia, which are groups of neurons that are wired together in a way to do functional type things. And at this level of the image, the main point here is to see that they're interconnected. So you have lots of these ganglia that are all interconnected, so it's a distributed network. The next image here is a blow up. So in other words, we're going to another level of magnification on one of these cardiac ganglia. So you can see what they look like. And I find it kind of fascinating. They actually look like little miniature brains, each one of these ganglia. And by the way, ganglia just means a group of neurons wired together in a functional way that's found outside of the brain. If this same group of neurons were in the brain, it could be part of the familiar brain centers that you hear about. It could be the core, the core nucleus of the amygdala, or interlaminar nuclei, things like this that are well-known brain centers. Just if it's outside the brain, it's called a ganglia. So again, here we're looking at the ganglia located intrinsically within the heart itself. So each one of these, you see my pointer here, these little circle things, those are neurons. Now, it's interesting, I should point out that these neurons in the ganglia, that we go back there, have been shown to have both short and long-term memory using the same type of recording techniques that we use to show that in the neurons in the brain. Now, I'm not implying that the heart neurons are designed to remember what grandma's face looks like, but they do have a type of memory that the heart needs to have. Now, feeding into the brain part within the heart are about 40,000 of these sensory neurons, which are called afferent neurons, more technically. So these sense many different types of things within the heart itself. Functionally, there's a group of them that sense things like how hard the heart's working, the forces for blood pressure within the different chambers of the heart, rhythms and rates, these kinds of things, and encode that information and send that up to the brain and other parts of the body. But a much larger group are also sensitive to the biochemistry in the blood. So they're sensitive to the chemical content. And that makes a lot of sense if you wanted to have a sensory system to know what the hormonal, the neurotransmitter content and flows in the blood were. I mean, the heart's sort of an obvious place to put that, and that's certainly what is located there. Now, it's interesting that these neurons are what are called multimodal, multisensory. So they're sensitive to many different things. So they're multifunctional neurons. And we certainly know that they're sensitive to a wide range of hormones and neurotransmitters and things like that. And that a specific hormone, for example, gives a certain type of neural output pattern that's different from a different type of hormone or neurotransmitter. But the evidence is also indicating, I believe, that these neurons are sensitive to other things. And as we'll see, there's pretty good evidence that they're also sensitive to things like magnetic fields, electromagnetic fields. And I would even go so far as suggesting spiritual influx and these kinds of things as well. These could be a bridge to why we talk about heart intuition and these kinds of things. Now, another important, just again, I'm going to summarize here, but the interaction between the neurons in the heart and the neurons in our brain through the different branches of our nervous system result in what's called heart rate variability, or HRV. And that's basically what creates most people are more familiar with the term the heart rhythm. But in reality, that rhythm is created by the beat-to-beat changes in our heart rate. And in a healthy individual, our heart rate changes with every heartbeat. And that's going on all the time, whether we're asleep in bed or sitting quietly or being very active. This beat-to-beat variability is always going on. And it's a very important thing, because low variability, if we lose that natural variability, that's an important indicator that we're depleted. But maybe that could be too much stress going on that causes us to become depleted, and our energy reserves dropping, kind of our resiliency dropping. And that's also correlated then with a much greater risk of future health problems. So variability is a good thing. And what you're seeing here on the screen is just a few seconds of it. And we'll look at a much longer time period now in this image that you're seeing here. So now we're looking over a few minutes. So what the image you saw before would just be a very small part of one of these graphs. Now the rhythms that you're seeing here are from the same person, and they're just in two different emotional states in this case. So on the top graph, where it's labeled frustration, this is where we just had the person, this is actually from a study that was published back in the American Journal of Cardiology many years back in the early 90s, kind of become a classic image because it really captures the essence of what we're talking about, in that when we're feeling frustrated, irritated, impatient, anxious, these types of things, that results in a type of desynchronization in our nervous system, a lack of harmony, a lack of cooperation and coordination within the body systems, things getting out of alignment, out of sync. And that's reflected in this kind of chaotic looking or jerky looking heart rhythm pattern that you see on top here. And I like to use the analogy of this is very similar to driving your car with one foot on the brake and the other foot on the accelerator pedal at the same time. Of course, most of us don't drive that way because we know that it's not good for the car. We wear out the brakes, the drivetrains, all the stress we put on them a lot sooner. But what we don't often think about is our gas mileage. So when we're in that desynchronized or that out of inner alignment, we're burning a lot more fuel, a lot more energy. So it's a very inefficient inner state. And if we do that long enough times, then that depletes us, and the common symptoms of that are being over fatigued and ultimately burned out, these kinds of things that aren't so good for our long-term health. Now, you also notice over to the right, there's a label there called cortical inhibition. Now, remember I talked about how the heart sends more to the brain and the brain sends down to the heart. So when we have these desynchronized rhythms, this incoherent rhythm, as we call it, that interferes with the brain's ability to process information, for us to be able to think clearly. It's oftentimes when we get emotionally upset, it's when we make a bad choice, right? Or say something that we regret later in the heat of an argument or something. So this explains what's going on. It actually profoundly affects the way the brain can operate. Now on the bottom graph, this is the same person. And here they've used one of the tools, as we call them, that help us self-regulate and be more aware of what our emotional diet is. We sometimes talk about it here at HeartMath, to where they self-initiated a feeling of appreciation. So, and it could be appreciation for anything. The fact that the sun is shining, or it could be the appreciation we feel for a special place in nature or a person or a place. The key is that we've really activated that positive feeling. It could also be a feeling of care or compassion, but really any of the kind of core heart frequencies, as we like to call them here at HeartMath, that automatically causes a shift in our heart rhythms to what we call coherence, which is the bottom rhythm. So here we have a lot of variability, but you can see that it's ordered over time. And this means that our inner systems are in sync. There's alignment going on at the physiological level between all the different inner systems, our immune system, hormonal system, but also, and I think even more importantly, there's an alignment going on between our emotional centers and our cognitive centers. So it's bringing our heart, mind, and emotions into alignment, sync. And that's an important statement, because that's one of the bigger problems, I think, out in the world in general, is that we don't have our emotions and our mind and our physiology well integrated and aligned. So we can be thinking one thing and feeling something completely different. And that's ultimately a lot of stress comes from that. And then you can see over on the right side that label there is cortical facilitation. That basically means that our brain is operating much more in sync. So we're able to think much more clearly, make better decisions, be more in charge of ourselves, and not being jerked around by the external stimulus so much, but really being more aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and making better decisions. Okay, that coherent state's an important state. So I've kind of talked a lot about this already, but just to summarize here, that when we're in the heart coherent state, that our physical and psychological functions are more stable, and that this is really the optimal cognitive state or cognitive function state. So by getting the heart into coherence, the brain's the big winner. A lot of studies have been done now, which is of course not our topic today, but showing improvements in long-term memory, reaction times, many different aspects of cognitive function, better decision making, better teamwork, these kinds of things. And this is ultimately the state that we're doing in a lot of our programs now by learning how to sit in that coherent state to accumulate energy. So we're not wasting our energy, not draining the gas tank, so to speak, like we talked about having driving the car with one foot on the accelerator and the gas at the same time. So by learning to more be in charge of our energy and more regulate our energy from a more intelligent perspective, that leaves more of it to manifest our intentions and help create more harmonious outcomes. Now, the frequency, as we call it, that the coherent rhythm operates at is what we call 0.1 hertz. It's a 10-second rhythm. So that's the human resonant frequency. And that's to begin that aligned state where the spirit, heart, mind, and emotions and the body systems all come into a sync and alignment. And that creates more of an energetic or resonant link between each other. And I'll show you a couple examples of that in a few minutes, but also with the greater environment itself, as we'll also see. Here I'll just show you a couple of examples of this type of alignment between people. We call this the energetic heart connection. And just to give a little background here, the heart generates the largest rhythmic source of electromagnetic energy produced in the body, either in a human or an animal. And that's why we call it the electrocardiogram when we measure the heartbeat, because it's the electricity generated. So there's an electrical component, and that's what you measure when you put electrodes on the body for measuring the electrocardiogram, or the ECG as it's called, or the brain waves. But there's also a magnetic field created. And the magnetic field is different than the electric field. And it takes a different instrument to measure that than the electrodes, and that's called a magnetometer. And human tissues are what we say are transparent to magnetic fields. In other words, they travel right through the skin and the tissues. So the magnetic field generated by the heart radiates external to the body. And that's what we're representing in the image you see here by these toroidal fields. And that actually is the shape of the heart field, or these donut or torus, as are more technically called shapes. So in reality, when we're around other people, we are literally sitting in each other's cardiac fields or heart-generated fields. And with today's equipment, we can measure those about 3 feet away from the body. And just to put that in comparison, you can measure a brain wave about an inch or so away from the body. So the magnetic fields generated by the heart are very strong, and strongest by far of all the fields in the body, and radiate externally. And as I'll show you here shortly, the information about what we're feeling is encoded in those fields. And that really helps explain, which I'm sure you've all experienced at different times, how these energetics affect those in our environment. And I like to make the point here, but this goes on whether we're conscious of it or not. And usually we're not conscious of it. And most people have had the experience of when we go to a friend's house or even to a business sometimes, we can just walk in, and before we even catch any body language cues or voice tones like that, we just have that sense that, boy, something doesn't feel right. Must have been an argument or something that went on. And sure enough, we find out that something has happened that's created some turbulence, emotional turbulence in our friend's house or whatever. And the same thing is true on the opposite. Sometimes we can walk into a place and it just feels so comfortable and coherent to be there. Of course, that's what we want to create more of, is that coherent environment. And as I'll kind of talk about a little bit later, is just like creating that coherent environment in our living rooms or our workplaces, we're really talking about just extending that to the larger global environment. So here's an example now of measuring the information that's encoded in the heart's electromagnetic field. And the point here is that you can see that it looks very different when we're frustrated or angry, these types of feelings, versus when we're in that positive state of appreciation or care, compassion. And the main point here is that they're different, and this changes in real time as we change in our emotional states. So we're broadcasting this like radio stations all the time. And here's an example that I've shown this before, so those of you that have seen my previous webinars will probably remember Josh, who's my son. and Mabel. And being family members made them automatic research subjects. So here's just an example of a little study we did to show a type of interconnectivity energetically between Josh and the boy on the bottom and Mabel, the dog, on the top graph. So what you're looking at here are their heart rhythms, their heart rate variability. And in this experiment, we put recorders, they look like little pagers. They're very, very small little devices that allow us to record the electrocardiogram for many hours at a time. So we put one of those on Mabel and one on Josh, synchronized the timing of them. And then Mabel got to come into one of the labs. That's the far left on the top graph that you're seeing. And her rhythms are all, she's all excited because that wasn't a place she normally got to go into. So she was all getting to explore and look around and discover a new place. And then we asked Josh to go into the room where Mabel was, to the lab, and just sit down in a chair to not make any physical contact with Mabel. So he's not petting the dog or talking to Mabel or anything, just to sit down and do what we call a heart lock-in, which is where you focus your attention in the area of the heart and then activate a sincere feeling of care or appreciation and radiate that feeling outwards to your choice of focus, in this case, to send that love and care to Mabel. And we can see that Josh's heart rhythm down here on the bottom went into a pretty coherent rhythm. And he better be able to be coherent, right, being my son and practicing this. So luckily for him, he made a pretty good shift. But what was really amazing here is look at the state shift up here on top of Mabel. So we can see that Mabel's made a pretty profound shift here into, I guess we could call it dog coherence. And then, so that goes on for a few minutes here. And then Josh is instructed after that time period to get up and go out of the room. And then here's, Mabel wasn't very happy about that. She can see she's all up and active and kind of like that. So there's, I think, a pretty good example of a type of energetic connectivity. Now, the next graph I'll show you here is doing basically the same type of experiment with a human and a horse, in this case, Ellen and Tonopah. So basically, it's the same kind of experiment. It's an energetic experiment. In this case, Ellen's not petting the horse or doing any of that kind of thing. And so on the top in blue up here, this is Ellen. And so in this case, it's in a corral instead of a lab, but recorders on both Ellen and the horse. And here's where Ellen does the heart lock-in and goes into a real nice coherent rhythm here and sends her love, appreciation, care to the horse Tonopah. And we see, again, a state shift that occurs in the horse here. And now this was one of those experiments, just briefly, that worked really quite well. Sometimes experiments just work way better than you even expect them to. And this was one of those. It's in the first case where we did this with 4 different horses. 3 of them had almost identical shifts that you're seeing here. And then we found out later that the one who didn't was a horse whose personality was one of such that he didn't want a lot to do with humans. Was pretty standoffish and what have you. So, and we've done more of this since. So there's a definite energetic link here as well. The next experiment I'm going to show you here is a little different type of measurement, but again, it's showing an energetic connectivity between a mother and her infant. In this case, it was about a 3-month-old infant. Again, it's an energetic experiment, no physical contact being made, but they were in close proximity. And what you're seeing here is the red graph on the bottom here that you're seeing. This is the baby's heartbeat, electrocardiogram. And the line on the top is the mother's brain waves. Okay? And I won't go into the details here, but this is a process called signal averaging. And that's just a technical term but for a technique that allows us to measure things that are in sync, that are synchronized together or not. And what we are seeing here is that the mother's brainwave is literally synchronized to the baby's heartbeat. In other words, it's a physiological synchronization going on here. And it was really quite interesting in this study, which we just started beginning doing this type of research with babies and things. But it was when the mother paid attention to the baby, or put her consciousness on the baby, that her brainwaves would synchronize. And then if she was off distracted, thinking about other things, this synchronization would not be there. And this is a very similar experiment that I'm showing you here. We did a series of these, but this is with 2 adults that are actually quite a ways apart. They're about 5 feet apart. And you might recall that I mentioned that with today's magnetometers, we can measure the heartbeat about 3 feet away. So this is several feet farther than we can currently measure. So it's really indicating that our nervous systems, the human nervous system, is very sensitive to these biologically generated fields. And we seem to be really tuned into biological fields, much more so than we are other types of electromagnetic or magnetic fields. And here, again, it's very similar. On top, we're looking at subject 2, one person's EEG or brain waves here on the top. And on the bottom is the other person's electrocardiogram in the signal averaging process that allows us to measure synchronized activity. And over here, where it says unsynchronized, there's no really synchronized activity. But notice here, right in sync with the other person's heartbeat, that there's a big shift in the brain wave. And this turns out to be the alpha rhythm. So this is showing in this case that this person's brain wave is, again, literally synchronized to the other person's heartbeat at 5 feet apart. Now, it was interesting because we found that in this case, when we're at these farther distances like this, that coherence was critical. So in this case, it was subject 2 who was in a coherent state. So this means that when we're in a coherent state, we're much more aware or tuned into the energetic environment. So out of that stability of coherence, that allows another level of energetic sensitivity to emerge. So I just wanted to share some of that to give you a background here as we move into the Earth's energetic systems. So what we're basically doing is listening in on the Earth's systems through a variety of different ways. And before I get too into that, I'd like to just kind of give context here from this statement from Dr. Franz Hallberg. And that's probably not a name that most of you would recognize, but it's a good chance that most of you have heard of circadian rhythms, the 24-hour rhythm. Dr. Hallberg is quite literally the individual who coined that term back in the late 40s. And Dr. Hallberg is still very active. He just turned 90 this year. And he's considered the father of the field of what's called chronobiology, or time, chrono meaning time, the timing of biology and the rhythms within the human system. And he's been studying the interactions between the Earth's fields and human biology for many, many years, obviously. And so basically a kind of a summary statement from Dr. Hallberg that it's the invisible magnetic influences emanating from both the sun and the earth affect basically life from birth to death, and that's true in many different ways. We won't have time to go into all those kinds today, so I'll just do a high-level summary. And Dr. Hallberg, I should mention, is on the advisory board for the Global Coherence Initiative, and we're doing a lot of collaboration together for the project. So when we talk about the Earth's magnetic field or the geomagnetic field, this is just kind of a picture of it here. We're talking about you can think of it like a big bar magnet in the center of the Earth, like a bar magnet, we played with in high school or junior high school, where we dump the iron filings on the plate or the glass and put the magnet under it, and they all magically jump into alignment, stand up, and show these patterns. So it's not really a big bar magnet in the center of the Earth, but it's the way you can think of it. So it's what's called a stationary field. It's always there, basically. And this is the field that our compasses tune into. And it goes out into space many, many, many miles. And it's a very important part of the Earth's energetic systems. And without the Earth's magnetic field, life would not be possible on Earth, because it's the first level shield, if you will, that protects the Earth from what's called the solar wind, and a lot of the other X-rays and things like this that would basically bake the Earth if it wasn't there. However, the Earth's field does have it is a static field or stationary, but it does modulate, and it is influenced by other things, which I'll show you some of. So this is just showing here. If we look here, this is the sun side of the planet's magnetic field. It is protecting us from the solar wind, which are particles that are spewed out from the sun. So the magnetic field is kind of compressed on the sun-facing side of the Earth and stretched out and in a big long tail on the dark side of the planet, and that's changing as the Earth turns. Okay. Now, a lot of different cultures have talked about and known that there was an influence of solar activity on human health and behaviors. The Mayans, for example, talked about this, the ancient Chinese, many different cultures. But the first scientific exploration of this that really looked at it from a rigorous way that at least we're aware of, and I think it's generally credited, is to he's a fairly famous, in fact, he won a Nobel Prize for his work, is Alexander Chesovsky, who was a Russian professor of astronomy and also of biological physics. And he observed that during World War I, there seemed to be more severe battles, kind of chaotic things going on when the sunspots were highest and there were more solar flares going on. So he did a actually rather profound review of human global history. Took him many years to do this, and I've actually been reading some of his original research where he reviewed global things, both good, bad, anything that was like a global event back to 1749. And his perspective was, what he called it was this index of mass human excitability. It seemed that during certain periods there were a lot more things going on globally on the Earth than at other times. And here's his original graph. This was first published in 1926. And on the top, the blue lines that we're seeing here, we're going back to basically 1749 here. These are the number of important historical events that are occurring. So he plotted those, this very careful review of global historical events going along. And we started down here at 1840 all the way up to 1926. Now on the bottom is the solar cycle. So this is our solar flare cycle. And I don't think you have to be a scientist here to see that there's something going on there, that there's a correlation between the solar activity and human mass human historical events. Now the media and unfortunately even the scientific community tends to like to focus on the negative. So we tend to hear more about, well, that the war started or the economic problems that occur on the planet have these correlations with the solar cycle, and that is true. However, it's just the same as also true that the greatest periods of human flourishing also occur with these same cycles. So it's not just the negative. These are great opportunities for human growth and flourishing. So some of the greatest discoveries in science, flourishings of the arts, music, the positive stuff also goes on along with the same rhythm. And that's a point that I'm going to come back to very shortly. But now that here we're talking about just a very kind of brief summary, and this really isn't even a summary, but showing that a lot of our important physiological functions are also synchronized with or influenced by these rhythms in the geomagnetic fields of the Earth. Things like blood pressure we all know, or most people know, that there's a daily rhythm in things like our blood pressure and heart rate and these kinds of things. It's called the circadian rhythm. But there's also weekly rhythms that occur. Another longer rhythm that's occurring over a 1.3-year cycle, and even longer ones over things like 35 years. So those rhythms are occurring in our blood pressure and our heart rate, and also in our heart rate variability. And which is something that we do a lot of work with here at HeartMath is looking at the heart rate variability rhythms. Now, what's really interesting is that these exact same rhythms are found in the geomagnetic fields of the Earth, and at different times will be synced into one and another. These types of things, but so these are important to consider when maybe things like blood pressure and trying to determine if somebody's hypertensive or not. Oftentimes, in fact, people are misdiagnosed because of not taking these other rhythms into consideration. The kind of main point, and I guess my main message today is that more and more people are really starting to realize that these both these solar rhythms that I was just talking about, but also the universal energy influxes, they're part of a natural cycle. You know, they're not out to get us, right? It's not a bad thing. They could be great add-ons to both us personally and to humanity, but it really depends on how we choose to respond to them. So the bottom line is we have to become more in charge of ourselves, learn how to take self-responsibility for our own energy, and really use these influxes, this creative energy, to create deeper connections, more caring interactions, more collaborations with each other, and also with the planet Earth itself. And of course, that's one of the major focuses of the Global Coherence Initiative, is to provide or suggest some tools and techniques and help focus some of the energies where we really can work collaborative and co-collaborative together to create a more coherent environment. Now, switching back to another type of energetic field, Earth energetic field. So I kind of briefly talked about the geomagnetic field, which is an important one. There's another type of magnetic field, or another source of magnetic fields that is a very important one, that's generated in what's called the ionosphere. Now, the ionosphere is also critical to life on Earth. Without it, life would be possible on Earth. And you can think of it as a soap bubble around the Earth, completely encapsulating the Earth. It starts about 50 miles up from the surface of the planet and goes out to about 200, 250 miles, depending on which side of the planet, if it's the sun or the night side. And the ionosphere is a layer of highly charged ions, the oxygen ions, nitrogen ions, things like this. And that's what it's called a plasma. So when you have these highly charged layers, it's what blocks a lot of the solar radiation, and the fact that the bottom of the ionosphere is the ozone layer, which most of you are probably aware of. And there are very strong currents that flow around the Earth in the ionosphere. And these currents give rise to magnetic fields. And then there's also a cavity, so it's like our insulative space between the Earth itself and the bottom of the ionosphere that create a resonant cavity for magnetic wave propagation to occur in. So it's kind of a complex interaction, but it's a very important part of the Earth's energetic systems. The Global Coherence Monitoring System are sensor stations designed to measure these rhythms and frequencies and resonances that occur in the geomagnetic field and in the ionosphere and in that resonant cavity. So that's when we talk about the monitoring system. So that's metaphorically, to keep my scientific hat on here, I'll call it metaphorically. It's like listening into the rhythms of the planet, the heart rhythms and the brainwaves of our planet. I suspect, though, when we're a few years from now, we've been able to do a lot more about monitoring and understanding Earth's energetic systems, we'll probably discover that it's not really a metaphor, that the planet Earth really is a conscious living system, and that the energetic system is part of that living system, and that it is very much like measuring human brainwaves and heart rhythms. So this is what a sensor looks like. This is one of the magnetometers, as it's called, that's designed to measure these rhythms and changes in the Earth's ionosphere. This is Maggie, as she's become called around here, and we're using a different type of magnetometer as well now. It looks a little different. Now this is the spectrum showing the frequencies that occur, the resonant frequencies that are occurring in the ionosphere. And there's 8 primary rhythms or frequencies. The first one is 7.8 hertz. Now it's interesting, this is a fairly new science. This was first predicted that these resonances or rhythms would exist in the ionosphere cavity in the late 50s by a German researcher, Otto Schumann, and that's why they're called Schumann resonances, named after him. But they weren't first experimentally measured until around 1960. So in terms of scientific understanding, that's relatively new, and there's still a lot that's not understood about the planetary energetic systems. But right after they were first measured, the easiest one to see, the first one measured, was 7.8 hertz. And that got a lot of excitement going because that's the same or very close to what's called the alpha rhythm in the human brain. So as it turns out, pretty much all of these rhythms, 14 hertz, 20 hertz, 26 hertz, all the way up, overlap different aspects of human brainwave activity. So it's kind of obvious to see why a lot of the scientific community got excited about this, because here's the planet, if you will, singing 24 hours a day in the same frequencies as the human brain. So there are a lot of different correlations. I mentioned just a couple earlier, blood pressure and heart rate variability, but a lot of other correlations to human activity that go along with these geomagnetic rhythms. So the belief has been that these are probably mediated by these changing rhythms in the ionosphere. And just very recently, in fact, very late last year, some very good research done in Russia where they monitored human brain waves over a long time period with a lot of people, and also monitored the Schumann frequencies, did find a very strong correlation. So there's now some very good evidence that that's in fact probably what's going on. Now, excuse me. As it turns out, there's also another set of resonant structures or frequencies in the Earth's fields, and this is more the geomagnetic field itself. Now, if you think of those field lines emanating out from the North Pole to the South Pole that go out many, actually thousands of miles into space as guitar strings, which they kind of tightly stretched strings like that, which they are, these flux lines. When they interact with the solar wind and different things, it causes them to vibrate. It's kind of like plucking the strings. And so they're vibrating in these different complex resonant modes. And these occur in a very different part of the spectrum. So these are completely different than the Schumann ionospheric rhythms. These are the geomagnetic field itself resonating. And they're very rich and complex structures, and we can mostly measure these at night when on the night side of the planet where the activity is a little quieter, where you're not interacting with the solar wind so much. And just a peak right here that you're seeing is at 0.1 hertz. Now, I hope that you remember that number from earlier in the presentation, because that's the same frequency as the coherent heart rhythm. When we're in a coherent state at the individual level, our heart coherence, that's the same frequency of these resonant modes of the Earth's field itself. And then there are other fields here. All of these fields, frequencies of the planet are overlapping with different aspects of heart and cardiovascular function. So basically what I'm saying here is that both the heart and brain are tuned into or operating in the same frequency ranges that the planet itself is again, I like to say singing to us, sitting there always vibrating at. Now, here's what's called spectrogram, and this is just a way of showing a lot of this data in a very compact way. So we're looking over typically a 24-hour period across this axis here in time, and then the frequency is going up and down on the horizontal axis. So this band right here you see going across, this is the 7.8 rhythm, hertz rhythm, the 14 hertz rhythm, the 20 hertz, and so on. And right down in here, where I'm pointing to, these are those field line structural resonances. So this would be our first Schumann or ionospheric rhythm, moving on up. But these down in here are the Earth geomagnetic field rhythms. And so these are most clearly, you see they're occurring throughout most of the night here in this case. Again, that's easier to see them at night because during the daytime, that's the side of the field that's interacting with the solar wind, and it's much noisier and hard to see those structures, even though they're probably still going on. Then the next graph here shows these daily spectrograms for a month. And this is a page right off of the Global Coherence Initiative website. If you go to the section on the Earth's energetic systems, this is updated daily, so we can plot this. So it's free to anybody to go look at the daily activity of the Earth's geomagnetic and ionospheric fields. And by looking at these, especially over months, it becomes very clear that there's not only the obvious day-night difference, but it's a very rich and changing energetic environment that's going on with the Earth. So it's, again, I won't go into the complexities of all that today, but it's a very rich and energetic environment between these two fields. Now, currently, there is one sensory system, or one sensor site, and that's located here in Boulder Creek at the HeartMath Research Center. But our goal and our vision is to have, right now we think we'll have to have 12 sites around the Earth to really get a good sense of what's going on with the Earth's energetic systems, these geomagnetic and ionospheric fields. And this is about like, I kind of look at this like about 80 years ago, when the first brainwave was being measured in humans, and putting one electrode up on the head there and going, wow, look at this, a squiggly line. And the discovery that was going on there, that those squiggly lines changed when we did different things, thought different things, or were asleep or awake. So you can get a lot of information from that one electrode. However, let's put two electrodes on the head, right? One on the right side, one on the left side. So that gave a whole new world of information about what was going on. And then let's put one on the front and the back at the same time. And that led to even deeper understandings. So that's we're really at that point in science here of understanding the Earth's energetic systems. We're at the single electrode right now. And so far, there has never been a networked version looking at the Earth systems like this. Now, there are for the geomagnetic fields, the kind of averaged out stationary fields. There's a sort of a global network of those, about 14 stations around the planet that come up with the what's called KP index, the static field. But there's never been a network of sensors like this that are looking at this rich environment of the rhythms and resonances, and especially in the ionospheric fields. So this is really something new that we're attempting to do here. So as funding allows, we will be adding different sites around the planet, and then developing new techniques and understandings of how to look at that data and understand it in context of each other. Okay, so for most people, it's pretty easy to understand and believe and get that we would be affected, our health and behaviors would be affected by the energetic fields that we're born into and live in. That there would be mechanisms to allow that. And there's much more data that proving that than I've even hinted at today. So that's pretty clear that and a lot of scientific data to support that. And it just makes common sense. But we're suggesting that it's a two-way street. So not only do the Earth's geomagnetic and energetic fields affect us, in mass scales, of human health and behavior, but that people's collective activity also affects the Earth's energetic fields. And that's ultimately why we're undertaking this project here at the Global Coherence Initiative, is to do rigorous scientific studies of that. And that's not going to be an easy thing to do. That's going to take some time to get enough sensor sites established around the planet. And also we have to get enough people involved in the membership and enough collaborative organizations working in partnership and cooperation with the Global Coherence Initiative to create enough of a global coherence wave to be able to measure the effect. So both are critical to be able to prove this. Now, there is some evidence, however, that that the Earth's magnetic and geomagnetic fields are affected by collective human emotion. And here's an example from magnetometers that are on board satellites out in space. And if you watch the news at night and on the weather report, you see the satellite images of the cloud cover around the planet over our area and things. Those are coming from these same satellites. They're in geosynchronous orbit, meaning they're about 22,000 miles out in space above the surface of the Earth, but in a stationary place. And these same satellites that we get our weather images from have magnetometers on board for measuring the Earth's magnetic fields. And that's what we're looking at here. So these are the satellites, one over the east coast, one over the west coast of the United States. That's the two lines, the red and the blue. And the vertical lines here is 24 hours of time goes on between each one of these. So these are the days here leading up to the terrorist attacks on 9/11. And right here at the timing of the first attacks, we see a huge jump in the Earth's field, again, measured 22,000 miles out in space. And there are times that you see jumps like this in the Earth's field, but they're fairly rare. And to be timed exactly with an event like this, the odds of that are astronomical, that would just be a random coincidence. But even more convincing to me is if we look at the fields, the patterns in the fields following the terrorist attacks. And if you think back what the emotional climate of the planet was like during that time period, those days following 9/11, there was a lot of emotional turmoil, a lot of fear on a planetary level. There's just a lot going on. And I believe that that's what we're seeing reflected in the fields here, is that same incoherence and turbulence. Of course, this doesn't prove anything from a scientific perspective. An N of 1, as we say, never proves anything. But I think it's very suggestive and supportive of the hypothesis that we do, in fact, interact with the Earth's energetic systems. Now, another measurement system that is really tuning into Earth energetics, Earth energetic fields, is this network of random number generators. It's a global network. And this is maintained, this was conceived and established and is maintained by the Global Consciousness Project. Roger Nelson is the head of that, and I was also on the board of the GCI project. Here's our advisory board, and we work very closely together, the two organizations. Now, there's actually a 50-year history, to give you a very brief background here, of work showing that systems that are supposed to be and are typically completely random, like the decay rates of nuclear isotopes, for example, or the outputs of electronic devices that create noise, kind of like the white noise on your TV screen. If you remember back, at least I'm old enough to remember back when we had analog TVs and you tuned to a channel that didn't have a signal, had this white noise. That's kind of a random screen like that. So you can actually build electronic devices that are designed to be random and not have any type of order whatsoever in them. But anyway, this 50-year history has found that in the presence of strong human emotion, and again, it's emotion much more so than mind intention or thoughts, that it's the emotional system of the human system that tends to interact with these type of systems, and that these supposedly random systems would be subtly affected, but measurably, that they would be a type of coherence was introduced into them, that there was more order that was supposed to be there. So that's what led to the development of this global network of random number generators all around the globe. So what you're seeing here now is the data from this global network on 9/11. And this is the largest effect on the network, the largest single effect. So what should be happening here around this line of zero is that because it's random, this should be all around this line. But very clearly we see here that the network went way out of random. And it's important to add here that this is the correlated activity of this global network. In other words, many of these devices all around the planet stopped being as random. There was coherence introduced not only at the individual devices, but in a collective way, so that all the devices around the planet were being, this coherence was being introduced into them at the same time, in the same way. So that's one of the ways that can really say that this is a global stress wave that's going on. It's just not a local effect. Even though it is stronger locally, it is a global effect. And it's interesting here that in this case, the network reflected this several hours before the first attack. And this has led a lot of people to talk about or speculate that this is really evidence of a global intuition that occurred. And there's actually other examples of this occurring In fact, in the recent earthquakes in Haiti and Chile, there is a device located in the Chile area, which showed a similar effect, that the network went out of, had this coherence induced into it an hour or two before the earthquake occurred. So I think we're more of this evidence. So this is a global energetic system that's not fully understood, even though some theories are now being developed. It's another type of energetic field, a subtler field that is occurring that we're able to tune into. So that was an example from 9/11, obviously a very kind of stressful time period on the planet. But here's an example from the global network during a global peace day or a meditation and prayer day. This is back in 2007. And we see here the red line, again, it should be right around the serial line like this. But again, a correlated network effect where the devices were going out of this, showing this increased coherence and order. So it's also positive effects. In fact, Dr. Nelson did an analysis, and it's now over 300 formal events have been analyzed. But this, I think there were 270 some, I believe. I may be off by you on that, when he did this study. And he had all the events that occurred that they'd done these formal analysis on, analyzed, and a couple of different people rate them for the level of love and compassion. So like a global prayer day to radiate love and compassion to the planet. So obviously would be rated high in love and compassion. Things like Super Bowl events, sporting events would be medium, because you've got, half of, no matter who wins or loses, you got half of them that are the losers and half that are the winners. So that's pretty kind of a medium, not a lot of love and compassion there. And then obviously the low ones would be things like terrorist attacks and earthquakes and things like that. And what they found was that those events that were high in love and compassion had by far the strongest impact on the global network. And to me, this is one of the neatest applications of, or the research that's been done using this system, really showing that when we're conscious of radiating love and compassion to each other and the planet, that actually has the strongest effect on the Earth's energetic systems. Much stronger, as you can see here, than those that are the lowest in love and compassion. So I think this is an important, very important point. So basically our hypothesis and perspective here is that intention, when we send out an intention from a coherent heart, that's like a radio wave, and that goes out, interacts with and resonates with the Earth's geomagnetic field structures, and that creates, again, a subtle but we believe ultimately a measurable coherence in the greater environment. And then, of course, all the living systems would be subtly affected within that energetic environment. In this case, it's a global effect. Now, to maybe give that a little more understanding, it takes, if we use a radio station analogy or a TV station, it takes a lot of energy to create what's called the carrier wave, this big electromagnetic wave that gets radiated out. So we can have an antenna, say here in Santa Cruz and many miles away from it, yet we can have our little radio or our TV and pick up that signal. So it took a lot of energy to create that wave, but to modulate and impart information on that carrier wave takes amazingly little energy. So I thought that would help maybe understand what we're talking about here. So when we get groups of people that have a similar intention and are coherent within themselves and coherent across the group, that creates an amplification effect. So that's the importance, of course, is being able to have maintain our own personal coherence, but then being able to be coherent with others in a group context allows us to amplify that signal and interact with and modulate the Earth's energetic systems. And as we do that, that creates a self-reinforcing field of energy, emotional energy, which then makes it easier for other people to come into that field and to maintain their coherence. So kind of in summary here, the global consciousness shift that more and more people are becoming aware of, actually starting to feel and experience. It's, at least from our perspective here, it's really a chance to elect heart-based choices, take charge of ourselves and do things differently. In other words, as these energy influxes come in, we can either be unmanaged with them and go get in more traffic accidents and start arguments and things, or we can use them creatively and respond with more of our consciousness, more respect for each other, more love and compassion. And again, we certainly want to do that at the local level with our families, workplaces, but moving that more to a global perspective. And so it's basically time to end this old cycle of repeating the same old playouts whenever there's these energy influxes, like the solar cycle. But in these times with the global shift, other energetic influxes that are coming in as well. So these are great opportunities, and they can bring great benefits to humanity to help us spiral upwards towards our next dimension of what we call active intelligence and heart-based living. So basically the model, that scientific model of how this works, it's really kind of common sense at the same time, that it really starts at the individual level. What we do really does count. So as we take individual self-responsibility, start taking charge of our own day-to-day reactions and emotions, and put out more love, care, respect for each other in our families, in our workplaces, that creates an energetic environment at the personal level that helps those around us, an atmosphere, if you will, that makes it easier for others. And as we start doing that more consciously within, say, our workplace settings, within our schools and classrooms, within teams, within collaborations of groups, that starts moving us more to the social coherence level, so that we have more coherent workplaces, more coherent schools, more coherent communities, and that creates a bigger field, right? And that reinforcing field, making it easier for others in those growing larger environments, energetic environments. And as enough groups that co-collaborate together around the planet start moving from the individual to the social level, then ultimately that will eventually lead to global coherence, creating, again, a much larger self-reinforcing field, making it much easier for each next coming wave that is drawn into the planetary shift and the coherence. But the point here is it all starts at the individual level, and what we do in our day-to-day lives really counts. And it is important to do synchronized events. I think that is an important thing that really help put out kicker waves, if you will, to create these amplified waves. That even more important is at the end of the day, how much of our energy output, our emotional energy output, was really centered in love, care, appreciation, and respect versus impatience and irritation and those types of things. Because there really is a global meter, if you will, going on, kind of measuring the collective human output. So we are all involved in co-creating that shift. So I encourage you all to be aware of what you're feeding the field today, and to become a little more self-responsible for maintaining your own personal coherence throughout the day. So I'm almost finished here, and just kind of like to end with saying that the Global Coherence Project or Initiative, we're one of many groups that are emerging, and there are a lot of new groups coming online that are all working to facilitate the planetary shift in these, I think, very adventuresome times. I think it's a great time to be alive here on the planet. And as we all know, that it can be challenging through these times as well. As the new shift occurs, some of the old structures have to break up, but that really understood from the higher perspective, that's not necessarily a negative, even though there are challenging times that we have to manage ourselves through. So none of the groups that are doing this facilitation is more important than another. And that's truly the perspective we hold here at the Global Coherence Initiative. So we really do our best to hold a non-competitive spirit and really go out of this with genuine care. So all groups can add a helpful place in the grid. And are energetically connected with each other at the heart level to serve the greater whole. So all the different groups that are out there really are providing and serving an important piece of the greater whole. And we truly honor and appreciate the love and care that all groups and all the light workers, even if they're not in a group, have and are putting into this cause. And one of the things we are, a lot of you who are members, I'm sure most of you that are listening today are probably part of or have participated at one time or another in the Global Coherence Room. And the Global Coherence Room is a way to help share some of the suggested helpful techniques to get into coherence, but also provide a mechanism where those that want to can come together in heart coherence at the same time to do more synchronized events. And there are 3 scheduled times a day that people can go to and share this. And this is something that we're going to be redesigning, expanding. I know there's some technical problems for some people that we'll be solving here in the hopefully the near future, but also a way that we can co-collaborate with other organizations that can have their own global coherence rooms for their organizations. But yet we can also be doing it together in a co-creative way. So again, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. I think we're actually pretty close to being on time, only 5 minutes long today. I really appreciate your care to be part of the Global Coherence Initiative and your time to listen today. So thank you very much, and look forward to getting back together with you all on our next webinar.
Okay, here we go. Stop sharing. And here we are. Hi, everyone. Very cool. So I really love what you said, Dana, that you happen to notice that we have precognition, things that are taking place. And I know that I had recalled seeing something similar to that, where you'd sit in front of a computer screen and they would put pictures on the screen and they recorded people's emotional state. And before they actually flashed the picture, the person would either be upset or happy. Like if it was a positive picture, they'd be happy before the picture actually got on the screen. And if it was like a picture of war, they would be upset and frustrated or in fear before the
almost. It wasn't that they were consciously having those emotions, but the heart responded. The heart responded differently if an emotional picture was coming up or if a calm picture was coming up. But they, for the most part, the subjects, I don't believe, were conscious of what was coming up emotionally, but the heart knew. So the kind of the key is like, can we start to become more conscious of those signals that the heart is sending the brain, because there was also evidence that the heart's getting this information first and then communicating that information to the brain. But often we're not consciously picking that up, but maybe we do sometimes. So like, how do we start to become more consistently aware of what the heart is always sensing? The heart's like tuned into that energetic level of experience beyond space and time. And we can start to refine our conscious awareness of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's like, you know, because I know the, what is it, the law of attraction talks about thought creation, and I do take it a step back. It's like, no, it's not thought creation, it's emotion, then thought, then creation. You know, I feel hungry, I think I'll go make a sandwich, and then I go make a sandwich. I feel lonely, I think, oh, I'll call my mom. And I might not be connecting these dots, but that's what's happening. Like, I feel something and then I think something and then I go do that. Something is what I've been noticing, partly since I've been familiar with the HeartMath Institute. Because
yeah, I think emotions are often primary. And also emotions are so much more energetically impactful than thought. As we saw, like the heart's magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's magnetic field. So the energy that's going out that's connected with our emotions is so much more impactful than just the energy of our thoughts up here, which is comparatively tiny compared to this huge thing that's being projected that's so connected with our emotions. So in terms of the law of attraction, I'm convinced that it's our emotional energy that is the primary mover in that. And if we can get our thoughts aligned with our emotions, then that's powerful.
Yeah. So exciting.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any other comments? Michael would like to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking there, I was muted. Yeah, really exciting. So glad that you brought up to watch that. I think I might have seen that video before, or, you know, a lot of the information is very familiar, but it was just good to really be reminded of it all again. And I wonder do you know when that was recorded?
Well, it had to be after 2014 because there was 2007.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, it's been a while. I was just curious. I'm really curious. Maybe you know, Dana, you know, just where they're at with the rollout of those sensors, the coherency sensors. Just wondering. So curious.
I think there's probably at least 6 out of the 12 that they're projecting. I know there's one in New Zealand, one in Canada, one in Saudi Arabia, California. Where else? I know those for sure. There's a couple more. I think there's about 6 in the world at the moment, and then others planned.
I just love this stuff. I mean, it's so cool.
I mean, I can't believe how much we know and how far we've come. And then there's also really we still haven't figured it out. We've known this stuff for so long. Like, it's a little frustrating. Like, so much loss, you know, on the planet, and pain and suffering that's been so unnecessary. It's kind of that's the only heartbreak I think I carry. That knowing.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there's only 6 this many years? They're not that complicated devices to create, are they? Like, why?
Funding?
I'm wondering. I've always kind of felt that way about both of those, you know, both that project and the Global Consciousness Project. They're such incredible insight and such potential, and it seems to be developing so slowly. I just wonder why. Maybe there's a good reason for it.
Funding is, I would guess.
Wow.
You know, HeartMath is a service-oriented organization. They're not in it for like making big money, and I think these things are fairly expensive to make and maintain. That would be my guess.
I would just think, like, you know, if I was a multimillionaire, I'd be donating to them. You'd think there'd be like just a handful of what's the right word? Philanthropists that might help, you know, sponsor one of these devices.
Right.
I'm just
Adopt the magnetometer.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there must be those people out there that would really resonate. Maybe you know some of them.
Maybe I really want to, after watching this video, I really, in meeting you again, there's been so much interesting synchronicity around this. I can really feel the resonance both with me and with everyone in the time, and with some of the projects I'm working on. This just so fits in so well. I really feel like it's time I want to start investigating that more, and making connections with the people that are doing it, and finding out how I can help or participate and I feel very, very resonant with it. And I feel like maybe it's been perfect that it's taken this long. I feel, you know, now it's 2020. I feel like it's so time to begin rolling this out in a more scalable way. You know, that's
Yeah, I'm sure you could contribute some valuable skills to like helping them put it out there in ways that people can really relate to, and identify with and visualize it in different ways. And maybe it's good timing because if the Global Consciousness Project has recently merged with the Global Coherence Project, that's good timing.
Yeah, exactly. That's my sense is. My intuition says it is good timing.
You know how
I'm just
much
looking
they-
at what Chris is saying in the.
You know how much they cost, Dana?
No, I don't.
Can you take a guess, Michael?
I don't know that much about the technology. I mean, they're magnetometers. They're just measuring magnetism, or what are they measuring exactly, Dana? Exactly.
Magnetic field.
Fluctuations in the Earth's fields.
Yeah, so I would imagine it's just some kind of fancy magnet. I don't know.
And they're constantly going, like they're feeding
Right.
into the system constantly.
And there's probably, they probably have, it's probably hooked up to the internet, so it's sending data back. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't, by even looking at those, they seem like they would just cost, maybe $10,000 a piece for the hardware. I don't know. Maybe they're more than that. Couple $10,000 or something. But then there's maintenance costs and the people who are monitoring it. But it seems negligible. It seems like they're pretty simple devices. It's not to say that it's easy or anything like that, but the science is pretty straightforward. It's not like we're measuring quantum states or something like this. It's just basic electromagnetics and the same kind of technology that Tesla was dreaming of and stuff. So pretty fundamental, classical kind of technology. Copper wires, electromagnets. Generally speaking, there's probably more. I'm sure there's more to it than that. There's always a lot more to these kind of projects than we imagine. But
yeah, I mean, well, Roland was saying that there hasn't really been a network that measures these particular aspects of the Earth's ionosphere and geomagnetic fields. That this is sort of a first. So
yeah.
Maybe it's more complex than we think.
Well, yeah, the network part of it is. It's just that it's just utilizing electromagnetics. I mean, I'm no expert in it, but from what I understand, it's like you're either just I don't know, just classical electromagnetic stuff that yeah.
So Dana,
Yeah.
they don't really have a big fundraising part of their department then, huh? They're not trying to raise money?
Oh yeah, they have always had fundraising. They depend a lot on donations from the beginning. Yeah. I mean, they have a business part of their operation, which is a for-profit company that sells programs and things like that. But then the research is mainly funded by donors and members and people like that, and then there's education that also I think is based on funding, and sometimes there's external grants, but they're really doing it kind of on their own. They're an independent organization. They're not an educational entity, not like a university or something like that that's tied into all these sources of
Right.
funding.
Right.
Um,
Did you see the map? I posted a link to the map in the chat of the sites they have.
all right.
Oh yeah, great.
They have 7 funded and 6 built.
Global Coherence Monitoring System. Yeah, Canada, California, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Lithuania, New Zealand.
So about halfway there, huh?
Mhm. They also have to have somebody who's going to, house that
Right.
site and be responsible for it.
Right. And, a local person that is into the science and everything totally.
Yeah.
Where
Saudi
did
Arabia was one of the earliest that was done, and I remember pictures of Roland with this like chic guy in Saudi Arabia, installing the site there. So they had somebody there that was enthusiastic about it.
They don't have one in India yet. They should put it in Oroville, India. I think Oroville, those people would probably be into this.
What do they do there? Is that like an ashram or?
Well, it's Oroville is it's a community near Pondicherry, near Chennai, India, South India, and let me find a link. It's been around for decades, but it was conceived of by a lady named the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, who Sri Aurobindo is one of India's most famous contemporary philosophers, and he's got really great stuff. I just put the link in.
Cool.
They've got some really. It was designed to be kind of like an example of a city of the future, like designed in the 1950s in India, but it's based on all these like integral philosophies and cosmology, kind of stuff like that. They'd be very aligned with a project like this. And there's tech people there. I was there in 2004 with Michael Gosney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went on a trip there together. Pretty cool place. That would be the place to put it in India.
Then it would always be coherent.
Exactly. It always
Good result.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just I have a lot of questions. I just need to start digging into it, start really looking at the website more and watching videos and.
Did you say that Dr. Nelson is now taking over the Global Cohesive Initiative? Global Coherence? Or merging with the Global Coherence Initiative and the Global Coherence Project?
My sense is that Roger Nelson is actually stepping back. I'm trying to remember, like the phone call we had on the phone, he kind of sounded like he was, he's later in life. He's just kind of moving on. That's what it sounded like to me. I'm sure he might be involved at some level, but I think HeartMath is just taking responsibility for that project.
Yeah. Like that's what Michael
Gosney. Yeah.
Was saying, that HeartMath was taking over in a way, or assuming main responsibility for the Global Consciousness Project. So.
Yeah. And I'm remembering now, actually, I'm remembering on the call that we had a couple months ago with Michael Gosney and Adam Curry and Roger Nelson. I think that came up in the conversation. I think it might have even kind of catalyzed that we were even talking about this. There was kind of like, well, I've been kind of thinking like maybe talking to HeartMath about this, and so maybe that kind of influenced him. I don't know. That's probably why Michael knows about it.
Interesting.
So good to keep things moving.
Yeah.
So like now, imagine if Elon Musk was involved with this project. We would have 10,000 of these. I mean, seriously, because you know what he's done with. You know about Starlink, right? Do you know what Starlink is?
I don't know much about him at all.
Okay, well, let me just. And I don't mean to steer this conversation to Elon Musk, guys, but one of several. I can't keep track of them. He's got like 7 major innovative projects they're doing. One of them is called Starlink. Starlink is this new company that they're disrupting the internet industry by they're going to be putting up literally thousands and thousands of these satellites around the earth to handle high bandwidth internet traffic and delivering it to billions of people in the world who don't have any access to internet. This is a huge sector and market opportunity too. They're going to be making billions and billions of dollars from this. But the point is, I mean, they just rolled this out in a couple of years. So they're producing thousands of these satellites and they're sending them into space rapidly. And it's just like, wow, like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just like push out these magnetometers? Like it's all networked and we all have like the app and we're all getting coherent. We can just measure it real time. It's just
right. And make the Global Coherence app and sensors available to schools all over the world, and like that.
Go in at affordable prices and get a full evaluation and training and all the devices and.
I'd help out.
What, Dana?
I said I'd help out in that bigger rollout.
So would I.
Yeah.
And definitely help with that effort. Then we can see where you know our people are having a meltdown. We're just like, okay, send in the troops.
Right?
So good to see you, Jaimina. We just watched an hour-long video about Earth's energetic systems and its effect with human consciousness. Very amazing. Yeah. So it's not thoughts that create reality, it's our emotions that create thoughts that creates our reality. One step back. Or just our emotions that then create reality.
Yeah, our emotions really are the drivers. And our thoughts are not always in sync with our emotions. Like we could say, you know, at HeartMath, they always were like, give the example like, oh, I'm fine, you're fine, I'm fine. And then like, inside we're all like, what a bitch, you know, like, you know, that was, I'm never going to forgive that person. And, oh yeah, I'm fine. You're all fine. And so like what we think and even try to convince ourselves of sometimes is very different than what our emotional world is doing. And our emotions move a lot faster than thoughts. They're in different pathways in the brain. They talk about emotional hijacking, how, you know, emotional memories can bypass the whole rational thought process and drive a lot of our behaviors and reactions, whether we're conscious of that or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's different than just the cognitive model that says a thought precedes a feeling, or, you know, a thought causes a feeling, and then the feeling causes the action or something. But thoughts don't always cause feelings.
Right.
But then if this is true, then doesn't that mean we could just all sit in a park and feeling really wonderfully connected to the earth and feel the essence of world peace and feel the essence and just like, just picture everyone eating yummy food and just a bit, and then, you know, get that visceral feeling within us. I mean, is that the answer? I mean, that seems so simple. That means that all we need to do is get this critical mass to agree to do this. And we'll say, okay, Tuesday, next week, be there, vibe it, feel it, believe it, trust it, and poof. I mean,
That's a big piece. And Chris is saying Abraham Hicks would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I think it's true. I think where it's still getting complicated for a while. In at least one part is that if we go do that, also some of the what we call, you know, incoherencies are still latent in our deeper bodies, in our deeper unconscious minds, both individually and collectively. You know, we share and set, like the presentation I did earlier today. You know, these deep traumas in our, you know, ancestors' past. We're still holding memories of that in our DNA, I believe. And so even, you know, the way to work that out is to do what you said, is to come into coherency, go, oh, hey, everything's awesome, everything's great. And it is great. And then that allows those things to sometimes emerge, right, from the collective unconscious. And then sometimes people find themselves reacting deeply without, like Dana's saying, sometimes those emotions just come up and then override us, hijack us. That's what's happening a lot, I think, in the world today. It's just that's why some of these, you know, leaders, I don't know their names, Trump and, you know, all these people, they're hijacked, and some of them are, you know, channeling aspects of the collective unconscious. So, you know, long answer short, I think that is the answer, and yet the more we do that, there's clearing that's happening. I wonder how we can accelerate that or mitigate it. You know, I still, you know, as a techno optimist mostly, I also wonder about our, you know, as we progress into genetic engineering and genetic science, what else we might discover there in this context of coherence and health coherence. There's still so much we don't know about DNA and how we might be, you know, is there a way that we can clean some of that out without having to, you know, feel it for another 500 years or something? I don't know. Just just imagining and wondering.
There's a lot to understand about DNA at an energetic level and what its deeper functions are, I
Yeah.
believe, and also how coherence can affect that
Mhm.
level of DNA function. That's
Yeah.
something I'm interested in too,
Yeah.
and how water interacts with that as well.
Mhm.
And, I'm pretty sure that coherent heart energy affects or activates like some of the latent functions of DNA for higher purposes. I don't know all the details of that, but that's what I believe
Mhm.
for sure. And also like just coming together and really feeling an intention, like Summer was just saying. Sometimes that creates the energy that allows then opportunities or actions to emerge in a more inspired way. So it's not like we don't take any action. It just creating that energetic wave can create sort of a magic that allows the right connections and the right series of actions to happen. But I think that's part of how it works. So I think that emotional, energetic wave can be very powerful, and it can also lead to inspired action or help facilitate or catalyze inspired action.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it's all connected, right?
And I know there's like World Peace 2030, and they're looking to just have vibe, get enough people to just vibe world peace by 2030. So,
Yeah, but they have actions too.
okay, what are their
Yeah.
actions? I'm not familiar.
Well, they have 7 frequencies, and each frequency has associated actions that you do, like in your community or with people that are near you. Like it's about connecting, it's about creating more unity. So they're asking you to like go out and actually do something that you wouldn't maybe normally do, like connect with someone in your community that is different from you, that you might not normally connect with, or put a group together that then plays this game together and goes out and does things in their respective communities. So it's like it's got both the energy frequency level and it's got some action steps. That's why they call it a game. I don't have all the details, but I've been participating in a few of the sessions, introductory sessions, to learn more about it.
We want to open up the conversation to more tangents, side tangents. I know, Jaimina, that you just came from another gathering. Is there anything you want to share? Or should we, I want to make sure, if anyone has questions about the video or first. You're good, Jaimina?
Hi everyone. I came here to greet you. I wasn't here all day, so I wanted to back up a little the project. It says that here, it says a pop sign that I was waiting to be assigned or something like that, so I was just quiet and listening. But right now I have to get tuned to what you were talking because it's so elevated. Sorry, I've been like in a party and drinking and I'm all over my head. So I'm going to concentrate as soon as I can, okay?
You're at a
And
party.
share whatever I
Friday.
am pleased to share.
Yeah, I know we talked about, what can we do? What about give everybody ecstasy, right? Okay, let's all take ecstasy on this one day across the whole globe and then just set out this cohesive heart shockwave.
Well, every day at 4, what is it? 8 a.m., 4 a.m., 12 p.m., and 8 p.m. Pacific time is the synchronized care focuses, when people can go in that care room together and know that there's other people doing it. So, if people really took it seriously, everyone could go in there at those times and do it. And
Are there still glitches, or did they work out the glitches? Was that the global? Because I remember I tried to do it on my phone a few times, or
Mhm.
it had broken down a little bit for me because I was doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
They used to have the Global Care Room on their website, but last time I checked, I couldn't find it there anymore. So I think now it's only on the app. So everybody's encouraged to do it on the Global Coherence app. And I don't know, I never had a problem with it on either platform.
Maybe I
Right.
was trying to do it like as a desktop on my phone. Maybe
Mhm.
you know how you can like open up instead of the app, you can open up the website on your phone and then use it. Maybe that's
Oh,
down for me.
I see. Hmm.
That's why
Yeah,
they
I
made
think
that.
it's all now in the app because the Global Care Room that used to be accessible from the website page didn't seem to be there. I looked all around for it because I wanted to show it in a presentation and couldn't find it. So
Wow.
I think they should have left it there as well. But I did see a while ago that they have a Facebook page where they have a similar Global Care Room with the little lights all over the map. Maybe they moved it to Facebook.
Oh God.
But mainly in the app, mainly in the Global Coherence app, because that's the thing that where you can actually connect with your sensor if you have one and tap it. Maybe they want people to do that. They're encouraging people to do it that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Christopher apparently had like a major mind explosion. Christopher, you want to share how you feel it? Oh, is he still here? No. Oh yeah, he is.
You can just type.
Mm-hmm. That's 4 a.m., 12 p.m., and 8 p.m. PST. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then I think on sometimes they have special care focuses, which are like unique focuses. I think on Wednesdays at 12, they may have like a special care focus. And then sometimes if something pretty serious happens on the planet, then they'll have like a special care focus around that sending care to that aspect.
Like to Haiti or Puerto Rico or when there's, yeah, makes sense.
This was all brand new. The fields around hearts. What?
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to share, which is kind of interesting. You know, I have a unique, I guess, just life in the sense where I couldn't hear most of my life until Obamacare came around because I needed hearing aids, but I didn't need them so bad. I guess according to like Social Security that I couldn't get disabilities. So I kind of unfortunately like fell through the cracks of like growing up with even my parents and medical and you know when I was covered in my family coverage and then as soon as I left New York and came to California to go to college, my dad's like, "Oh, good. You need to take a year off from school and not going straight into college. That means I can kick you off the family insurance." And it's like, whatever. Thanks, Dad. So I couldn't hear until Obamacare. So I would have to stay really, really close to people, like literally practically touching you, like shoulder to shoulder or something to be able to hear you. So in terms of the energetic field, man, am I dialed into that. So I feel now I hear, you know, now I have hearing aids but I'm telling you, that's that feeling and like I can spot a liar, I can feel a liar, the energy vampires get away, I'm gonna call you out, all of that stuff. It's really cool. So if you need a bodyguard, an energetic bodyguard, I'm for hire.
Wow. Wow. So you have developed that sensitivity. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. It must be amazing to now be able to hear after such a long time of not being able to.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, being able to be in groups, you know, I mean, I used to sit in groups with like 30 of us, whatever, and I can only hear the person on both sides of me and it would break down immediately on the next. But now I'm like, oh my God, I just heard all 40 people. It's like a total like,
Oh my God.
so I read a lot. I did a lot of video with my headset on, phone calls to stay connected.
Wow.
Hi, Mina, was there something you were going to say? Lesson one?
What does an energetic bodyguard it's in charge of doing? Tell me. Because it's a hard job to do, huh? Which you know it takes. Explain, please.
So, yeah, an energetic bodyguard. I would just, if you're going into like the danger zone where you might be getting zapped or whatever, I just come and I'd be like, this one's feeding you, this one's sucking from you, this one's.
Wow. Hmm. So were you aware of people's feelings, without being able to hear?
Well, that
This
goes
is not interview with the vampire, sweetheart. It's more than that.
Hmm.
I'm being basic here. But I will say this, man, in terms of boyfriends or whatever, I've been celibate and single for a long time because I just felt that energy that was just not, they weren't looking at me or wanting me in a holistic way. It was very, you could feel that just creepier energy or whatever. And now, I found a perfect man, insane alignment on every level. It just blew my mind how I can just feel that. And it's like, it's like zero disharmony. It's like super cohesive. Went from like zero to like, let's get married. So I really think,
Cool.
I know. I called it in too. I held the space. I'm like, okay, there are these 7 things that I want, and I'm not gonna freaking cave on any of them. Boom, it's here, and it's more than I imagined. That's kind of going off on a. We'll have to have a talk on that, how to manifest your divine partnership and all that, because.
I'm going with you to a break room if you want. No, the thing is that you have to study shamanism. This is no like, this is big deal. So if you're gonna be an energetic bodyguard, you better study how to do shields, energetic shields, shamanism, and how to ground yourself every time you need to. Yes, it's hard. It's hard to be a bodyguard.
Yeah.
And I don't consider you to, because you have to have a little bit of malice, and I don't think you have this at all.
Oh, a little bit of malice, like, I'm New
Like
York.
being mean, you know? Like you're gonna get it.
Mhm. I kind of karate chop people. I mean, so I even call myself a pit bull. Like, don't fuck with my family because you're gonna get this New York pit bull on your ass. So as light as I am, watch out because there's balance, baby. And that's, I think, the free will. Sure, in the land of the free, sure, I can do whatever I want. But if you want to live in harmony and balance, you have to choose what we do and what we don't do. I can feed you or I can starve you. I can love you or I can hate you. I can take from you or I can give to you. And that's the choice.
So you know your darkness, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
Yes, be careful. Just be careful because it's hard stuff. I'm not doing this at all. I know people that does this and has been gone through cancer, through tumors, through so many things. So be aware of this because this is no game.
Yeah. And thank you, because, I tend to think I'm a transmuter. And then I'm like, I just stay wide open. So I feel like the energy just passes through me and I make sure I'm barefoot and on the earth because I know earth can take it. And, I keep the channel open to keep like the light healing, to keep me safe and, the light filled and all. But I would need more training to be, I'll be happy to be any of your energetic bodyguards, but maybe not just some random person off the street. Oh. But then actually, I guess you'd be walking into the fire as well, because we're all on the front lines of this transformation here. So.
Sorry, just
Yeah,
to
somehow.
interrupt a sec. Yeah.
But I know my limits.
Michael, did
really
you
am
want to talk about what you just put in the chat, the link to the sponsor, Ascension?
Yeah, I want to say something about that, but also real quick, we're speaking about matters of the heart and our loved ones. My girlfriend, she was asleep at her house just across town here in Mount Shasta. She texted me and she said the cat woke her up, yada yada, and she's like hoping for a guided meditation to go back to sleep. And I was like, I got something for you. And so I just sent her the link to the Global Coherency Initiative like intro video, the new one. I'm wondering like who can recommend, maybe you can, Dana, or someone, like a good, like one of the best global coherency meditations, because I'm looking on YouTube, there's like a bunch of them. Do you happen to know one offhand? Like what's the good coherency YouTube meditation? Offhand.
No, not exactly, because they all have like different themes and
As I said,
focuses,
one
and
by Joe
usually there's a bit of
Dispenza.
a,
There's one
if
by
it's one that's
Deepak
actually from the-
Chopra. You know, there's one by Joseph Spenza. There's one by Deepak Chopra. Like there's a bunch of them.
Okay, interesting. I like the ones that they do for the Global Coherence Pulse that I've only just connected with recently. Those are very gentle and sort of expansive. I'm not sure if those are on YouTube or not. The ones from the HeartMath actual Global Coherence Initiative always have like this sort of introduction before, where they're talking about it, so it's a little more factual or something. Not factual, but the sort of there's more of a intro aspect to it. But if I, for the future, I can take a look and send you something. Maybe not for this very moment if she's trying to fall asleep right now.
I'll just send her a link to that whole page and she can choose one.
Yeah. But yeah, if you want to sponsor a sensor installation, it's $75,000 donation.
Yeah, I saw that. So they're around that price. Yeah, I was looking at, there was also a page that shows them installing the one in Alberta, which is just south of Edmonton, I guess, which is interesting. I've been to Edmonton. There's a really powerful like psycho-spiritual teacher in Edmonton, of all places. But so there's a page that shows them installing the Edmonton one. Yeah, it looks pretty involved. You know, they're digging underground and lots of wires and the team. So yeah, they're probably fairly expensive to do. Lots of travel, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and making it. I think it's not insignificant to construct this thing.
Yeah.
Anyone going to be doing the day at a time tomorrow? They're 7-hour.
Yeah. Probably tune into that.
I'll be camping up on Mount Shasta tomorrow.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's just a simple 30-minute drive from my house. Do it all the time. But particularly tomorrow.
So fortunate to do that.
What? How do you say your name? Azima?
You are Jimena.
Huh?
I am Mexican.
How do you say your name?
Jimena. Hi, Michael.
Jimena? What were you saying about Mount Shasta?
You are so fortunate to do that.
Yeah, I feel that way a lot. I feel really fortunate to be here. I was magically called, guided to be here 3 years ago, and it's just an extraordinary experience. It feels very accelerated and compressed here. It takes a little bit of responsibility to live here, in my opinion. It's definitely kept me on my toes a bit, but I feel a lot healthier being here, and especially during this time. My life really hasn't changed too much. I spend lots of time in my creative laboratory, doing what I love to do, very, very aligned with my creativity. And then I get outdoors a lot. There's such great wilderness here. Everywhere, not just Mount Shasta, but everywhere. It's really nice.
I visited Mount Shasta and Shasta Lake with the HeartMath folks, or some of the HeartMath folks, a small group, years ago, and it was beautiful. But at that time, I had very little understanding about Mount Shasta and its broader significance. Just kind of knew it was a spiritual place or something, but later was when I learned a little bit more about it, and I'd love to come back at some point. We were mainly on the lake, on Shasta
Like
Lake.
Siskiyou?
Hmm?
Like Siskiyou?
Shasta Lake.
Oh, Shasta Lake. Okay, yeah.
We were on a houseboat,
Uh-huh, yeah.
and then I did drive up the mountain briefly on one of the days. It was a long time ago. Yeah.
In the Dream Lodge, I don't know if anyone ever heard of that, at Magical Experience in Mount Shasta, a house of super creatives and healers, and it was crazy. We all, there was at one point there was like 40 of us in the house, and we got snowed in, so none of us could leave. And one person was like, well, if we're all stuck here, how about we do some LSD? And he brought out a vial, and 40 people wound up of like super high vibing creatives. And it was just the most incredible experience of my life by far. Yeah.
In Shasta, that's powerful.
Shasta. With the mountain, the Mother Mountain was like, we can look out our backyard and see her there. It was just like, God.
Off the charts.
Yes. I would repeat that 100 times over.
Do you see like spaceships there?
Well, I haven't personally seen any ships, but I have good friends who say they've seen things here that I trust. And I've had more than one experience with what I refer to as, diverse intelligences, higher intelligences, things like this. Like I was just thinking, there's a place here called the Stargate. Have you ever heard of the Stargate?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do they do videos?
They do, yeah. There's a website, the StargateExperience.com, I think it is. They have YouTube channels. It's Julian and Pragit are their names, and they have a house. It's just like a 5-minute drive from my house here.
Oh.
And I was just there.
Where is that, Michael? Stargate? Where is it?
Where?
Great
Yes.
experience in Mount Shasta.
Here, it's in Mount Shasta.
Ah,
So there's a house just 5 minutes from here, and it's a really nice big house with this giant living room, and there's this giant, I guess you call it a device, a framework. It's a sculpture, it's physical thing that's made out of metal, and it's this giant, very specific 3-dimensional geometry that you can stand inside of. It sits in the middle of the room, and that's the Stargate. I don't know the exact story of it. I think Pragit or someone he knew like channeled it some many years ago. I can't remember the story, but my first time there was just when I first moved there. When I first moved to Mount Shasta 3 years ago, I was invited by another friend to go to a private event at Stargate, and it was just like maybe a 2-hour meditation. And I'm an open-minded person, so I went, and I believe in higher intelligences, and I've had other minor experiences with these kinds of things, but I'm also a little bit skeptical, and just kind of go in just with some equanimity, and sat down, went into a group meditation. I was just meditating, taking it easy, no big expectations, things like that. And I had a really extraordinary experience over about an hour that really influenced me. And I would say that experience was the most explicit experience I've had of what I would say was contact connection with higher intelligent beings. I didn't really see them, but I could feel them. I felt a form of sensational transmission and communication of various sorts, and it was a really cool experience. I came home and had like 10 pages of notes about they gave me a tour of transdimensional reality. They took me through all the levels, and I'm very much into geometry and stuff like this my whole life, so I already had some of these things figured out, but they just really filled in the gaps for me. And I came home and just took all these notes. I still have it here, probably publish it someday, my whole experience. It was very, very convincing that something was going on. And I just went back again recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I formed a little group and we went, and also had a really good experience. Yeah, really profound.
That's really
so-
great.
So I'm more of that way. I don't really see ships or anything like that. And we see a lot of weird clouds around here. You get these lenticular clouds, and some people believe those are spaceships. I don't personally believe that, but I think we can explain what they are in other ways. But I do think there's something about the mountain itself. The mountain is volcanic. It's it erupted not that long ago in scope of history. So I think that there's something magnetic around its geology, and there's more to it. There's something more. So it's definitely a special place, and there's definitely something energetic going on here that interacts with the Earth's field and with cosmic fields, and so I think there's definitely something like that going on. Yeah.
Really cool.
No.
That's the kind of experience that I want to open up, where I can
So
really
cool.
communicate with interdimensional beings and receive information.
Mhm.
I'm more into that also than necessarily seeing things in the sky. I just
Yeah.
want that communication link.
Mm-hmm.
I think I met those people from the Stargate with their Stargate structures up at a conference on Vancouver Island, a science and spirituality conference.
Uh-huh.
And then that was a couple of years ago. And then recently I saw one of the videos from their place, and I was very impressed. She did, a young woman, did this channeling, and it was very deep.
It's probably Juliana. Yeah, probably her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to it actually because it was quite long and it kept going and there was a lot to it. So
Uh-huh.
who knows? Maybe you were even there. It was maybe a couple of weeks ago.
Wait, I was there. Where? The one in Vancouver?
No. You said you went back recently a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I saw the video maybe a couple of weeks ago, or maybe more now, maybe like a month ago.
Okay. No, the one we did a couple weeks ago was just a very small private group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was recorded.
Okay.
But interestingly, just before that happened, I learned about the CE5 meditation, and then that just kind of arranged itself magically, the Stargate, and then a week after that, I came on here for the harmonic convergence, and you did your presentation, and then we did the CE6 meditation, and I had that. I think I told you about that experience I had right here in Zoom. I had another really interesting experience with the CE6. Wasn't expecting anything.
I don't remember what you experienced.
Well, yeah. So that was 2 weeks ago, and I don't remember who it was that led that CE6 meditation.
Mark Sims.
Yeah, and there was 200 people here on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and we're doing it. And I was just hanging out. I was actually having a pretty rough day. I was feeling really out of whack before that, very incoherent in myself, and just hanging out. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of that C6, I just let go of everything, and I felt this. I was just really kind of allowing my own individuality to just kind of dissipate. And I was just really feeling into the 200 people that were here in Zoom, and how we're all around the world. That I was feeling this coherent cohesion and nexus point with us. And then I had this experience in myself that I guess it's kind of hard to put into words. We don't really have a lot of language for these describing higher cognitive experiences or psychic experiences. But I would call it a sensible transmission of something. It was in my own mind, but it wasn't really just my imagination. There's a more subtle quality to it. It felt slightly beyond me, almost like I could touch it. It almost has a sensibility to it, a thought that's almost a little bit solid. If that makes sense. I've only experienced this a couple times in my life with these kinds of things, but so I had that quality to it, and it was I was seeing and feeling. It has multiple channels of sensitivity. I can kind of see it and feel it and get its shape and structure and substance. And it was like this, almost like this brain thing that was kind of out there in the field that we were all creating through that meditation. And it was like, and then there was also like a subtle transmission from a higher intelligence, or extraterrestrial intelligence, or again I call them diverse intelligences, not really knowing where they come from, where it's kind of like, yep, that's it, you guys did it, and this it was like, it's like we were just guiding you here to just get a sampling of what you're really here to do as a collective. Like it's when you humans, now that you're learning how to come together like this, in this way, and be coherent together in this way, this is a sample of the kind of thing you can create, and you're going to be creating more. It was just like a little bit of this like global mind, like we were like really creating like an artifact of collective intelligence. So like something that's actually beyond us, is not beyond us as individuals and even as a collective, like something else, that like an emergent quality that comes from that actually almost exists on its own, like an organ of a superorganism or something like this. And I've experienced something like that once or twice or three times in my life before, in also very specific situations of highly coherent people coming together in groups with that general type of intention, and it's been almost tangible and sensible. So that I experienced at that time, and I took a note. I always note those kind of things as kind of like research into really what's happening here. Like I feel like we're really pioneering stuff in this new frontier. So that's what I experienced with the CE6 meditation 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going right now with a program or with a bunch of people, and are you doing something special over there, or
Me?
just like experimental, going there to feel whatever you need, or are you having a plan to do a channelizing or something like that?
Me with the Stargate, or what do you mean?
In Mount Shasta.
Oh, you're asking if I'm here in Mount Shasta with something intentional, or? Well, yes. I mean, I said I was pretty much guided and brought here. The short story is that I was living in Nevada City before this, and I was looking to move somewhere else. I wasn't feeling fully in resonance with Nevada City, and I went on a road trip in the summer of 2017. I went up during the eclipse, or the big USA eclipse in 2017. I went to Oregon for the big Symbiosis gathering, and on my drive back, I was going back to Nevada City, coming down the I-5, going right by Mount Shasta, and I'm in the car by myself, just hanging out, and I had this experience, again, a really rare kind of experience, where I'm just driving, looking at the mountain, it's crystal clear, and all of a sudden, my whole sense of beingness just starts to like elevate and expand. I get really clear. Like I feel like my whole sense of beingness started to come into my body as I'm driving, and I get super clear and full of presence. And then I hear this voice kind of come down from the right, and I don't normally hear voices in my head. This is maybe the second or third time anything like this happened in my life, but it's so clear, and it says, "Now is the time to move to Shasta."
Wow.
Yeah, I
want like that kind of directive.
Yeah, clear as a bell. Just like 100%. I pull over the car because there was like a carrier wave almost too. I was like, I could feel this other information come through of like why, and so I started taking notes. Move to Mount Shasta, call your friends, and do this, do that, and here's why. Because it's about that I'm finally ready now, I'm ready in my own evolutionary. It's like an evolutionary turn. I'm ready to come to Shasta for my next evolutionary step, and it has a lot to do with my personal mission of the kind of art I'm manifesting. And I use art in a very broad sense. I'm an artist, but I'm also a philosopher and designer and a technologist and system designer. It's all art to me. I'm a creator. And so it was really about and I've had these ideas for decades around things like this, but it's like now I'm getting to Shasta to really get this stuff done, to really focus now. So I took these notes, and I get I get back on the highway and I drive back to Nevada City, and I'm thinking, you know, I have a friend or two that lives in Mount Shasta. I should call them, you know, and ask them if they know of any houses so I can maybe move to Mount Shasta. You know, I'm serious about this, but at the same time, I know that, you know, I tend to procrastinate sometimes. So, you know, I'll do it in a couple days or maybe a couple weeks, something like this. So, and then I'm back there in Nevada City, and like a day goes by, and I'm just getting back to business as usual, not calling my friend in Shasta yet. And my other friend named Suhail, who's this Indian guy I met on the Yuba River earlier that summer in 2017. He calls me out of the blue the next day. He's like, hey, Michael, I was just on Craigslist and I found this amazing house out in Mount Shasta. And I think you and I should go up there and rent it and make a utopian community. I'm like, I haven't told anyone, no one. I told him.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, that's amazing. And so I tell him the whole story. I tell him what just happened like the day before. And he's like, you know, this is incredible. So I look up the house on Craigslist, and it's this really cool house up just north of here in Gazelle, north of Mount Shasta. And it's a nice house, but my gut sense is right away, I go, this is not the house for me. But I don't tell him that. And I'm thinking, this is so synchronistic. We just need to go up there anyway and check this out and to see what happens. And so I say, you know, come on over now. We'll drive up there. So we drive through the night. It's like 3 hours. Again, I'm back in Shasta already. It hasn't been 48 hours yet. I'm back in Shasta. We spend the night. We wake up in the morning. We go see the lady about the house, and she had just rented it to someone else, which is another interesting story that branches off in this really synchronistic way, who it was and what happens later with this party that I went to and stuff. But so I think, oh, that's cool. So they rent someone else. I knew it wasn't my house anyways, but now I'm back here in Mount Shasta now. I should call my friend now. And so I get on the phone. I call my friend, Michaela Mickelberg, who lives here in Mount Shasta. You know Michaela?
I love Michaela. She's like one of my besties. She's
Well,
amazing.
Michaela and I used to live together at Solstice Grove in Marin County. I don't know if you've been there summer. You've been to
I've
Solstice
been to
Grove?
Solstice Grove 100 times.
Yeah, I knew we recognized each other. That's where we recognize each other from, because I used to live there too.
We might have actually been on a panel like 20 years ago in Mount Shasta at the One Project. That's why I was asking if you knew Shannon, if you remember Shannon and what was his girlfriend's name?
Shannon and Andre Campbell's
Project. And the Buddha Belly.
Oh yeah, oh totally. We go way back then.
That's what I'm talking about. We go way back.
Well, because that's some of the backstory is that, you know, before I moved here, 20 years before I moved here was 1997. And that was a major turning point in my life when I lived in the Bay Area. I was just starting out in this. I was just beginning to get a glimmer of the consciousness movement. You know, I moved to San Francisco to become a web designer for the elevation of global consciousness. And I was working at the San Francisco Public Library at the time. This is 1996, 1997. Working at the library. I don't know anything. I'm just a young kid trying to figure it out. And I find, one day I'm in the archives at the San Francisco Public Library, and I find this book by an author I've never heard of before named Jose Arguelles. It's called Earth Ascending by Jose Arguelles. And I open up this book, and it's like, oh my God. It's got like DNA in it, and the galaxy, and the Mayan calendar, and all this new language of global consciousness. I'm like, holy man, this is my man. This guy knows. I'm like flipping through. This guy knows my language. Like, I get so excited. I bring home the book. I read the whole book in like one night. I'm just soaking it up. I'm like, this is what I'm here for. And I think I don't know who this Jose Arguelles guy is, but I'm gonna write him a letter, because the thing is, I didn't even have email yet, right? The internet was just barely starting. So I start writing him a letter, typing him a letter. I'm taking like days to finish it. I'm going to connect with Jose Arguelles because he's the only person in the world I know that knows anything about this consciousness stuff, right? And so I'm writing him a letter. And then meanwhile, my girlfriend who worked in San Francisco, she knew I was really into this stuff. And she knew I really wanted to go to a rave. I haven't been to a rave yet, you know, like a big dance party. And I still wanted to go to a rave. And so she's like, her friend says, oh, there's this big party happening up in Mount Shasta next weekend. You should tell your boyfriend about it. So she tells him about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go. And she couldn't go. So I went by myself. I drove up here, interestingly, at that time, 23 years ago, Comet Hale-Bopp was out at that time. You remember? And my first time, I drove up, and the first time I saw Mount Shasta, Hale-Bopp was right above it. I'll never forget that sight. And that was the beginning for me. Then I go into the party. It's like in this cabin in the cloud here. I walk into the cabin, not knowing anyone, right? I'm just this new boy on the consciousness block. And I walk into the room, and the whole room is filled with these kids, from like Seattle and Portland and Vancouver and San Francisco. And they're all like wearing like Hunab Ku shirts and like DNA, tattoos. And they've all got Jose Arguelles' books all over the floor.
Oh my God.
They're decoding everyone. They're telling everyone the like galactic signature and all this. And I walk in, I get someone reads my galactic signature. So I'm like tripping, because what a synchronicity this is. I just was writing a letter to Jose Arguelles, and now I walk into his like biggest fan club. And then we all took mushrooms, and like for 4 days it was just like and I made all these connections. And then we all Randy Osiris was there, and he had a company called Photon.net. And it was an early web hosting company called Photon.net, where he had a list server. So we had an emailing list, one of the first ones that kept everyone in contact up and down the West Coast. And that was the beginning of it for me. That's how I made all the connections that then led to the next connections, and just my life just unfolded in serendipity after that. That's how I came into this consciousness movement. It started in Mount Shasta. So that was 23 years ago. 20 years, 1997 to 2017 is then when I was driving, and the higher intelligence says, now is the time to move here. And so me and Sohail came up here. We got the house. I called Michaela on the phone, who I knew from Solstice Grove. And I say, hey, Michaela, I'm in Mount Shasta right now, and I want to move here. She's like, oh my God. Michaela's like, that's amazing. She says, just yesterday, our roommate moved out in our house, and I was just sharing with my other roommate how I really think we need, a new roommate who's like someone I used to live with at Solstice Grove. Like, I want someone of that caliber, someone who's like really doing stuff. Her and I lived together for 7 years at Solstice Grove. So I call the next day, and I'm the guy. So I come over, I see this house. It's called the Earth Star House, the house I'm in right now. And it's just perfect room, perfect everything. And that was the beginning of a magical rainbow ride. So that's what I'm here to do. And it's been 3 years now, but it feels like 7 years. It's just, since the day I moved in, it's been constant. It's just like, it feels very accelerated. I mean, I feel very healthy, and I feel slowed down inside here. I spend a lot of time in nature, but the way that space-time unfolds here feels different. I think it does, at least. Things feel very accelerated here. There's a lot more synchronicity than what I normally experience. And it's been also very challenging at times. It tends to really stir stuff up for people, which, it just amplifies whatever you bring here. So anything that's already in you that needs to be healed will be amplified. And so it's been an accelerating process in my own personal evolution. And also it's been very grounding for me and centering. I feel more productive and focused on my creative projects than I've ever felt anywhere in my life. So it's both like elevating and grounding at the same time, in my experience. Yeah.
Were there people you were supposed to meet there? Like, were there connections that you were obviously meant to make through being there?
Yeah. A lot of them are transitory. Like the summers here are interesting. Well, especially before this summer, because things are really, like everywhere in the world, it's hard for people to really fully connect in physical space. But the summers are really magical because you get a lot of travelers coming through here, people on vision quests and seeking, and just, a lot of synchronicity. I've met a lot of people that then move on, but we still stay in contact. And then my girlfriend, who I met about 7 months ago, has been a really magical connection. Yeah, we definitely meant to meet here for sure. But it took me a few years to get ready. Like I think you were saying something about this earlier summer, right? I went through a very long period of just really being solitary and doing deeper healing. And then it was like one day a gateway opened in myself. Like I remember the day, it's in my journal. There was a day when I was meditating and something totally fundamental shifted in me. And I knew that I was going to attract, the next super significant love. And then within days.
Mhm.
It's
Oh
like,
yeah, you feel it. You feel when you're ready. It's like, oh wow, I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
clear. I'm solid. I know who I am. I know what I want, and now I'm open. Bring it on.
exactly.
That's
So
great.
it was a calling then. Somehow.
What's that?
Yes. It was a calling
It's a
then.
calling. It was definitely a calling. I was called to move here.
Mm.
Mhm.
Any news on Talos?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, I was referring to this earlier when we were talking about global catastrophes and the rise and fall of civilizations and Atlantis and Lemuria. I feel like, well, I guess Talos is not exactly in that scope, but I had an experience with Talos too, about 2 years ago. Another similar story. There's a workshop here that happens every Wednesday, or not this year, but it's shut down now. But there's the University of Mount Shasta here in town, and a woman named Makwa that does a journey to Talos every Wednesday. Like he's going to drop $15, and there's a little group meditation. She does shamanic drumming and a guided meditation at Talos. So same thing. I was like a little bit like, I'm open-minded. I don't know. I'll go try it. And I went in and just lay down and did the shamanic thing. I had another extraordinary experience. This full-on shamanic visionary state, similar to what I was talking about, like this sensible imagination, like the images coming to me were just so much more crisp and clear than I would normally find. So it was an enhanced journey. And it's a very long story, but I went to Talos in the mountain and I saw it. And then I went further. Then I went to Lemuria and I went to planet Lemuria. That's how I developed this kind of like perspective I was sharing earlier about the living myth of Lemuria and Atlantis that's inside the kernel of reality that's expressing itself out in all these layers, outside of space-time, into space-time, because of this experience I had. But really powerful experience that really shifted my perception of what's happening with that. But I didn't spend a whole lot during that vision. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time in Talos. I arrived. It was this golden city inside the mountain. I don't think it's really there. If we went and like drilled into the mountain with our tractors, like we wouldn't find it. But I think there is something on an interdimensional level, a different frequency or something. And I went in, I saw it. It was this golden city. Everything was gold. And there were like a lot of different people and creatures there, like just all kinds. This lady with a fox head walked by, and someone with this golden scroll with red writing on it, this really cryptic language. And I was like, wow, there is so much to see here. And then some guide said, no, you need to keep going, rapidly. You have a lot more to show you. And so they took me to another tunnel and deeper, and then I went through a space portal and shot out and went to what I call planet Lemuria, or Mantaka, maybe it's called. It's this other planet. But so I didn't get to see Talos too much. They said, come back another time. I haven't gone back yet. Have you been there?
Not to Talos, no, but Mount Shasta. And yeah. What about the Omni Palace?
That sounds familiar. What is that?
Rutowski in San Francisco on Stas Rutowski.
Stas, wow. Yeah. Yeah, we go way back, huh? Yeah, I remember Stas. The Omni House. Mm-hmm.
San Francisco. That was on I know, right off of Haight, and what was that one? That street?
Yeah. Did Dante live there too? Remember Dante?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, you know Dante too.
Uh-huh.
Old school. This goes way back.
Yeah.
I remember I think I remember it was either the first or last time I met Dante, and there was, I think it was the Omni House. There was a potluck there. This is like maybe 1998 or something, and there's this big potluck dinner at the table at Dante's house, and I remember sitting down, and there was, you know, a beautiful young lady on my left, and we were like sharing spring rolls and talking, and I'm like, you know, who are you? And she's like, oh, me and my band, we just flew in from Maui. We just started a new band. We're now here in San Francisco. And I'm forgetting their name now. But you definitely know their name. They were really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember now. I was thinking maybe you were there.
Yeah. Oh. No, 97. I was actually back in New York.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been a couple. Actually, 1992. Oh, actually,
I was pretty nearby in Boulder Creek. That's when I was at HeartMath.
Yeah.
In 97?
1995 through 2007.
Oh, you moved to Walnut Creek in 95?
Boulder Creek.
Boulder Creek. From where?
Well, I had been doing an internship in Bermuda. Kind of, that was the year that I took off between college and supposedly graduate school. So part of the year I was in Italy, part of the year I was in Bermuda doing internships in both places in different fields. And then I went back to New York, briefly met Roland at a talk that he was giving with Dr. Oz, and got checked out. I guess he approved, and then I went to HeartMath. Well, then I went to Dr. Tiller, picked me up at the airport in California, and I spent the night with him, and then we drove down to HeartMath, and that's how I started my time there.
I moved there in 95 also.
Oh, really?
Yeah. San Francisco, Berkeley.
Uh-huh. Where were you before?
I was living up in Oregon. That's where I grew up. I was born in California, but I grew up in Oregon. And in the winter of 93 and the spring of 94 is when I had like something like an awakening. I was living up in the top of the Willamette Valley near Portland house, and for 3 or 4 months I started having these, you know, extraordinary psychic experiences and precognitive dreams and all this intense psychic activity. And I wrote it all down. I have it all in my journals, all this information, and lots of past life information, just enormous amounts of information. Is blowing my mind. But the primary theme of it was that I was being guided and shown that this thing called the internet that was just emerging at the time was going to be this very significant tool for humanity and facilitator for global consciousness. And I just got so lit up. I was just like inspired beyond belief by this idea. And that's what got me to move to the Bay Area in 95. And then I had that seed of intention that I was like, wow, you know, I want to become a web designer and an internet engineer, but with this, you know, really passionate burn for global evolution, right? For collective evolution. I was like, you know, how is this going to happen? I don't understand. How is this? And it took a couple of years. You know, I taught myself HTML and Photoshop, and I built a website. I think the website was called Fion.org. You know, it's like, you know, I had all this language on there about new language for the new paradigm, global consciousness, and I was throwing all my ideas out there. This is even, I think, before I met Jose Eric Wallace and all that. Just like, you know, I was just feeling this. And, you know, then the whole thing happened with Jose Eric Wallace and Mount Shasta, and that just linked me up even more. And then that got me connected to one day we were on this Photon mailing list, I think in like 96, 97. And I get this email about Earth Dance. Like someone was linking to earthdance.org. And I went to this website called Earth Dance, and it showed this extraordinary website like I've never seen before. Where like it was like all these moving images and sounds coming off of it. And plus, the whole intention of the project was, as I described earlier, this global dance party for peace, synchronizing, thousands of people to meditate and pray for global peace. And like, wow, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. And plus the way the website was designed was just so rich with motion and sound, unlike any website I'd seen. And so I found a link to the web designer. His name was Paul something, and he lived in Santa Cruz. And I emailed him that day. It was like maybe 97 or something. I email him. And I say, oh man, this website's so cool. I'm so curious how you made this website. And he emails me back. He says, there's this new technology called Flash. And it's just came out. I'm like, thank you. I'm going to download the software Flash. I'm going to learn it. And I tell him in the email, someday I'm going to make a website just like this. Right? So I send it off. And that's the last I'm thinking about Earth Dance. And then I download Flash. I spend about a year or two mastering Flash, and I enhance my website with all these amazing animations around global paradigm and conscious, all this stuff with Flash. Right? So then a year or two goes by, and one day I get an email from, I think it was Chris Decker, who was the founder of Earth Dance.
I think I know him.
Yeah, probably. And Chris Decker, he
sorry, I can't catch it because I am very, very tired, but it's not that it's not interesting. I will catch you up soon. Okay?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Bye, take care. Bye-bye.
Day at a time tomorrow, our field trip. Don't forget our day at a time field trip tomorrow.
Okay, at what time? What?
Right. I don't have a link for it. Does anybody have a link for the day?
I'll see the mail. I'll look at the mail then.
I'm not sure what time it starts either. Maybe 9, I'm not sure.
This is going to be a field trip. It's not with the conversation. I don't think that they're going to be doing it here. I think they have their own room. Is that correct?
Oh, I just assumed it would be on Facebook or something.
Oh, it's going to be on Facebook.
I saw a couple things earlier on Facebook about day at a time.
Okay.
At what time is it? Sorry?
I'm not
Summer?
sure.
Is it 12 to 7? Is that 12 to 6?
12 to 6 California or Seattle hour or what?
Let us find out. I don't exactly know.
I don't know either for sure. I was just going to look it up.
Yes.
Donna's taking
Tell
it.
me. Thank you.
Dana. Donna, sorry.
Oh, you want me to look it up now? I was just going to look it up when I needed it. Because I don't know either. I'm sure it's easy to find though.
Is there a mail they send or something like that?
Not probably.
Time.
I think they'd sent an email. Lawoftime.org.
I mean, you do want to look at this website. I don't think the event is on there. There was like a 7-day event from there, but the day at a time. So look at that.
It's also a Global Water Appreciation Day.
Oh, events.
Visit Facebook. So I think this site. Yeah, that's the one I found too. Oops. Law of Time.
Day at a time, it's 2019. It would make it easier if it's tomorrow.
It says Law of Time or day out of time. I understand. Okay. It was 27, right?
It's tomorrow, the 25th.
Oh, here we go. It's 13moon.com, I think. Saturday, July 25th, 2020. Global Appreciation Day. Yep, okay. Oh, it looks like it might be on the Harmonic Convergence page.
They're going to announce it over there.
I think They're actually, I think it's going to be on their Facebook page. I just sent you the link to the.
I mean, Unify?
It's going to be thrilled to announce there is a live broadcast on the day out of time. Eden and Robert Sky of Skytime will be featured along with many artists, messengers, educators, and visionaries from around the world. Please see details below and join in at
Super.
facebook.com Harmonic Convergence 2020. So,
Okay, super. Thank you for
Oops.
telling me.
not that one.
It is here, 13 Moon. Okay, I will save the chat.
No, next one. Here you go. Save that one. Where the Harmonic Convergence, the last one. So save the
If
chat.
I open it,
Facebook.
I should have this in my Facebook, right? It's not a new page. It's the one that we already are
Right, that's
loaded to, right?
That's Facebook. You did the global coherence, the harmonic
Yeah.
convergence, I mean, right?
Yes.
So if you did that on Facebook, then that's the same link where you saw the whole harmonic convergence stuff.
Okay, honey. Thank you very much.
Love you, honey.
Bye. Bye, guys. Nice to meet you, Michael. Take care.
Likewise, nice to meet you too.
It was amazing your calling, I swear. Bye.
Bye. Have a happy day at time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Marco, dear. Bye. Bye, Dana. Bye, Summer.
Mhm. So what time is that tomorrow?
We still haven't figured that out. It's the day out of time. It's not no time.
Right, no time. Just for 7 hour. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't say what time it's not.
It's not on our calendar.
Oh, that's too funny.
I think the law of time page though is part of it. I'm checking my email.
9 a.m. to 4 p.m. PDT.
Okay, I thought it was 9. 9 sounded familiar.
There's a link to register.
I'm sorry, what time did you say? 9 what?
9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, 9 a.m. Wow.
Well, that means I'm going to want to go to sleep soon.
And then also that evening they have the Saturday Night Alive, the out of time Saturday Night Alive celebration.
Yeah, I keep missing the Saturday Night Alive. I was going to do it this time, but I already been here for what, 3 o'clock, like 17 hours.
Oh my
It's
God.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I've been here since 10:30 Pacific time.
Wow. Amazing.
I did fall asleep for a half hour right around the end of that webinar.
Understandable. But anyway, the Saturday Night Alive thing is tomorrow night.
Okay.
There was another thing tonight that Scott held, but I missed that one. It's on Facebook. Anyway, I'll try to find it. I'm sure they sent me an email about it.
And then where's the Saturday Night Alive happening? Here?
That's on the Love Coach Academy, either website or Facebook page. You can either register for Love Coach Academy on Love Coach Academy or see the broadcast on their Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And then on July 26th is the World Water Day open sessions. And I'm presenting an open session on water that Sunday. And then it happens, I just saw on their page, I thought there was something on July 25th too. It happens to be a Water Appreciation Day that they're doing on the day at a time as well.
Gotcha. Oh, that's Mark's thing. Oh, not Mark. I mean Scott's thing. The Love Coach Academy looks like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Got it. So, how are people feeling in terms of the, whoops, I'm on the wrong page. Where are we? There you are.
I'm pretty tired, honestly.
I'm tired too. Okay. It's so hard to like say goodnight to everyone or want
I
to hang on though.
know.
It's just like more download, more input,
Yeah,
more input.
I know. I think so.
So special to be with everyone.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do it again.
Okay, same time, same bat channel tomorrow.
I want to have that past life when we were all in Lemuria session.
Mhm.
I'm curious about that.
Is that like you were looking on YouTube for the meditation? Or?
No, Bridget was offering to do a past life reading or regression or something where she could see how we were all connected through other lifetimes in service
That
and
makes sense.
potentially in Lemuria.
Mm. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to jump in on that. I mean, I do hypnosis also, so I guess we do, past lives and hypnosis, but I've never had it done to me.
Yeah, and as a group, that would be pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Hmm. How you feeling, Michael? Are you feeling like maybe wrap this up soon?
Yeah, it's after midnight. I usually try to.
Okay, I'm gonna do a Jamin. After midnight, don't let it all hang down. He tends to throw in Grateful Dead songs. I'm on that album with him. How about you, Marco? Are you feeling good with 17 hours in?
Yeah, kinda. So did Jamin said to just leave it, go recording run, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or- yeah. Said he was gonna get up at some point and
Really?
restart it.
Mhm. Well, I think if
I thought we would usually stop it if we left.
I don't know if we can stop
Well, I
it.
don't know. Has it been?
If we all hang up,
He said to stop it and restart it after about 4 hours, right? That's what it was.
yeah, but obviously I have to leave the room. Don't want to leave this open and then there not be any hosts here I mean, you have to have a host. So
is someone able to stop recording? I'm not able to.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
do I need to make you co-host, Marco? Or host?
I think I am co-host now. Yes, I am. Um,
I can make you the host.
you know what? Just I'm not going to be able to last much longer.
Well, no, I was saying if I need to.
So probably just make Jamin host,
Okay.
and that'll keep the room open.
But then if Jamin's not here physically and then somebody comes in and then they kind of taint the room because there's we kind of have our container, our healthy boundaries and our agreements. But
Yeah.
so
Who else is here?
I think if I close the room, like it's gone.
James.
Left as a host.
I think I think if we all left, that it would automatically stop recording, probably,
Yeah, that's what I think.
and then
too.
it would probably, automatically send it to him,
Mhm.
probably.
Huh, Christopher is saying he wants more stories from you, Mike.
I've got a lot of them.
It was really cool.
What do you want to know a story about?
Tell us another bedtime story, Michael.
Bedtime. I don't know if I got a bedtime story. What's a bedtime story. Bedtime story. I got to get more. Was it a more specific topic?
Hey, Christopher,
Planet Lemuria.
are you up for staying for a while and be host?
None of this will put you to sleep. Okay, Christopher says he is up for staying awake a while.
Oh my God, and it's 3:22.
Don't you want to do the day at a time at 9 o'clock tomorrow? I mean, if not, that's fine. But I guess Christopher, yeah. That's noon here.
Mhm.
3:22 here. Where are you? Oh, right, you're on the East Coast.
Mm.
Hmm. Marco. Okay, well, I mean, I can make, if you want to hang out longer, if you're one of those insomniacs, I can make you the host and you can hang out as long as you want. My only question is, are there? You're such a tease. Other people here.
No,
I'm going to go pretty soon.
Danielle looks like she could talk. Danielle, are you here? She's not on mute.
Yes, yes. I didn't realize I was unmuted.
All of
Yeah, hi.
People, but there's. Right.
Yeah, people are going to sleep on here.
Yeah, I am
Sleepover.
actually in bed. That's why I'm not got the video on.
most,
Yeah.
most of the nights that I have been here till like, 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, there's been 1 or 2 or 3 people sleeping for various amounts of time.
Sleepover.
Yeah, probably me.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Well, I know I'm gonna say goodnight. I know Michael wants to say goodnight. Dana. But I think we'll be back. I know I'll come back tomorrow night. I'll plug in, say hi, at least for a little bit. But I gotta drive to Santa Cruz tomorrow.
Oh, there's something happening tomorrow night here?
Every night, pretty much.
Is it? Oh, I
People
didn't
come,
realize that.
yeah.
every day, for like 12 hours at least.
Oh, so when Jamin said we're close to 24/7, he was.
We're 7. We're
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was
Yeah,
still.
they've
it
been
was just
they've been
Friday.
doing it every day.
Oh wow!
This is Friday, so this is the 24-hour block party, so
Right.
Right.
wouldn't be cool to shut it down.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but normally the conversation is going every
Yeah.
day for as long as people host.
I'm trying to remember what happened last Friday, but I simply cannot.
Yeah, Michael, this goes from about noon until like midnight is sort of like our definite time every single day, but it usually goes past.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that. I
Friday.
didn't know that was happening.
And Friday,
It-
7
it-
a.m. until like 7 a.m. tomorrow, I guess. Or-
It's only been going like that since somewhere near the end of Convergence. I started hanging out later, and then a couple other people did, and then it was 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock Eastern time.
Uh-huh.
So,
Great.
but I only had like an hour and a half sleep from Thursday till getting on here this morning. So
This is
I don't
really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just when I'm realizing if that's what's happening, and that's really kind of cool. I can imagine like 24/7,
That's what we're shooting.
and it's kind of like the Facebook paradigm, right? We've all been doing Facebook for over a decade, and it's like there's this. It is 24/7, and you can just jump in on any time, and there's this vast community there sharing, but it's all text and images. Whereas this is like, imagine this is just 24/7. And you can just at any time just turn it on, and there's just a conversation.
And
I
as
can
opposed,
imagine like in the future I'd want to like maybe have a monitor up in the corner of my room with a camera, so I can just walk in my room. It's like already going, and I can say, "Hey guys, I'm here."
as opposed to Facebook, we are, the CC in the conversation is compassionate certified, unlike Facebook, which is full of all kinds of nasty people.
Very different. It's a different medium, and so people tend to feel like they can say things and feel more protected. It's not so personable. This is much more personable.
Facebook is a kind of like a haven for cowards in a way.
Haven for cowards and hedonists. Yeah.
It's a battlefield. It's like a battlefield of ideas and identities.
Chris says, I've been here every day. Okay, more stories for Mike.
Just get me going. It's hard for me to just pull one out, but if I get reminded of something.
Give him a
Yeah,
talk.
I found that being here listening to everybody else, somebody has a story and then I think back, it's like it's been prodding my memory, and I'm realizing that I've had a pretty interesting life.
Chris said synchronicities. So I've got a lot of synchronicity stories. In fact, I've logged a lot of them. Like sometimes you'll have one of these epic synchronicities. So I have to write this one down.
Yeah, that's.
File somewhere with a lot of them.
I wish
Awesome.
I had thought to journal things.
Yeah.
He's still wanting to know about that house that you didn't move into.
Did I? I thought I finished that story. So I mean, because I bounced back to 1997 and forward again. Kind of the bigger story. But so I called when we came up and looked at the house. I called my friend Michaela. She's like, "Oh my God, I was just telling my roommate yesterday I want to live with someone. Their roommate just moved out the day before." And she's like, "I really want a new roommate who's likes the people I used to live with at Solstice Grove," which is me. Her and I used to live together. So 7 years.
What's Solstice Grove?
Solstice Grove was a community I lived at in Marin County, north of San Francisco, from about 1998 to 2007. And this was epic. Summer, you said you've been there, right? Yeah, Summer knows Michaela. This was epic. This is one of the most amazing chapters in my life. So it was Jim Fournier, who you might have heard that name, Dana. Jim Fournier, he's kind of known in these circles in the Bay Area. He's affluent. He bought this multi-million-dollar property in Marin County with 33 acres of land with redwood trees and a big house and a swimming pool and a hot tub and all this kind of stuff. And he knew that